The blood pooled faster than the trauma team could work. 26-year-old ICU nurse Maya Reeves stood frozen at the edge of the chaos, watching senior physicians bark orders while a construction foreman bled out on the gurney. Everyone focused on the obvious injury, a metal rod piercing his thigh. Nobody saw what she saw, the subtle distension in his abdomen, the way his breathing had shifted in the last 30 seconds. Internal bleeding, massive, minutes away from complete collapse. She opened her mouth to speak, but Dr. Nathan Cross cut her off without looking up. "Bennett, if you're not actively helping, get out of my trauma bay." The man's pressure dropped, alarms screamed, the team scrambled. And that's when the dying foreman turned his head, locked eyes with Maya through the chaos, and whispered 5 words that shattered everything. "Desert Angel, you're still alive?" If you want to see how this story ends, how the truth destroys everyone who tried to bury it, stay with me until the final word. Like this video, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. Pete Carrington Memorial Hospital sat on the eastern edge of Dalton Ridge like a fortress of glass and steel, modern and cold, the kind of place where reputations mattered more than results. Inside the ICU on the 4th floor, Maya Reeves moved through her shift the way she always did, silent, efficient, invisible. She was good at being invisible. 26 years old, slender build, dark hair pulled back tight, uniform pressed to military precision. She had a face people forgot 5 minutes after meeting her. Attending physicians rarely remembered her name. Nurses her own age didn't invite her to happy hour. The hospital administrator had once walked past her in the hallway and asked if she was new. She'd been working there for 11 months. "Vitals on bed 6?" Dr. Cross called out from the nurse's station without looking up from his tablet. "Stable," Maya said quietly. "BP 118/76, heart rate 82, O2 sat at 97%. He grunted. Didn't say thank you. Didn't look at her. Maya moved to the next patient, checking IV lines, adjusting monitors, making notes on her clipboard. She'd learned early that speaking up only invited problems. Better to stay quiet, do the work, go home. The other nurses thought she was stuck up. The residents thought she was timid. Nobody knew what she really was. Nobody asked. At 2:47 p.m., the emergency department called up to the ICU with a level 1 trauma alert. Construction accident. Adult male, severe leg injury, possible arterial bleed, ETA 4 minutes. Dr. Cross stood immediately, snapping his fingers at the nearest nurses. "Trauma Bay 2, let's move." Maya followed the group down the hallway, her sneakers silent on the polished floor. She could already hear the commotion from the ambulance bay below, the wail of sirens, voices shouting, wheels clattering across concrete. The trauma bay exploded into motion the second the gurney burst through the doors. 41-year-old male, construction site accident, fell approximately 15 feet onto rebar, penetrating injury to right femur. "Get him on the bed, now!" Pressure's dropping, 90/60. "Where's the goddamn blood?" Maya moved to the side of the room, hands ready, watching. The patient was a big man, mid-40s, covered in dust and dried blood, his face twisted in agony. A steel rod jutted from his thigh like a flagpole, the entry wound already packed with gauze by the paramedics. The trauma team swarmed him, hands cutting away clothing, IV lines going in, monitors beeping to life. Dr. Cross leaned over the patient, assessing the wound. "We need imaging before we remove that rod. Get me a portable X-ray and somebody page orthopedics." Maya's eyes moved across the patient's body the way they always did, cataloging details the others missed. Skin tone, breathing pattern, abdominal shape. And that's when she saw it. The man's belly was distended. Not much, just enough. His breathing was shallow, rapid, the kind of compensatory pattern that meant something bad was happening inside. She glanced at the monitor. His pressure had dropped again in the last 60 seconds despite 2 liters of fluids already running wide open. She stepped forward. "Doctor, not now, Reeves. His abdomen is distended. I think he's bleeding internally." Dr. Cross didn't even look at her. "The injury is in his leg. Focus on what's in front of you." But his pressure is dropping because he has a metal rod through his femoral artery. Now either help or step back. Maya's jaw tightened. She glanced at the other nurses, but none of them met her eyes. This was how it always went. You speak up, you get shut down, and then everybody remembers you as the nurse who didn't know her place. She stepped back. The team worked fast, prepping the patient for imaging, stabilizing the leg, pumping fluids and blood through the IVs. Dr. Cross moved with confidence, directing the chaos like a conductor. He was good at his job. Everyone said so. Chief of Trauma Surgery, 15 years of experience, published researcher, the kind of doctor who appeared in hospital promotional videos. And he was absolutely missing the real problem. Maya watched the monitor. The patient's pressure kept sliding, 88/58, then 85/55. His breathing got worse. The distension in his belly grew more pronounced. "Doctor," one of the residents said nervously, "he's not responding to fluids. Then give him more. 2 units of O negative now. His heart rate is climbing. I can see the monitor. Thank you." Maya's hands curled into fists at her sides. She could feel it, the way she used to feel it in the helicopter, with rounds snapping through the fuselage, and the pilot screaming they had 60 seconds to get out. That edge of the cliff moment when you either act or watch someone die. She opened her mouth again. "Dr. Cross, I really think—" "Nurse Reeves." He turned to face her for the first time, and his expression was pure ice. "If you interrupt me one more time, you can leave this trauma bay and explain to administration why you can't follow basic protocol." The room went silent, except for the alarms. Maya's face didn't change. She'd learned a long time ago not to show anything. "Understood." Dr. Cross turned back to the patient. "Portable X-ray should be here in 2 minutes. In the meantime—" The man on the gurney suddenly convulsed. His back arched off the bed. The monitors shrieked. His pressure plummeted to 70/40, and his oxygen saturation dropped like a stone. "He's crashing!" someone shouted. "Bag him! Get the crash cart! Pressure's 65/35. Start CPR if we lose pulse." Dr. Cross's confidence evaporated. He froze for just a second, staring at the collapsing patient, his mind racing to catch up with what his eyes were seeing. And in that second, Maya moved. She didn't ask permission, didn't wait for orders. She stepped directly to the bedside, her voice dropping into that low, steady tone she hadn't used in 3 years. The voice that cut through helicopter noise and enemy fire and the screaming of dying men. "Listen to me," she said quietly, leaning close to the patient's face. "You're not dying, not today. You hear me? Stay with me." The effect was immediate. The man's eyes snapped open. His breathing steadied just enough, just a fraction, but enough for the monitor to catch it. His oxygen saturation ticked up 2 points, then 3. His thrashing stopped. Dr. Cross stared at her. So did everyone else. Maya didn't look away from the patient. "You're going to be fine, but you need to stay awake. Can you do that for me?" The man's lips moved. His voice was barely a whisper, soaked in pain and shock. I know you. Just stay with me." "Your voice." His eyes widened, focusing on her face through the haze of trauma. "Desert Angel. That's what we called you." Maya's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. Something cold and distant and buried deep. Dr. Cross found his voice. "What is he talking about?" The patient's hand suddenly shot out and grabbed Maya's wrist. His grip was weak but desperate. "You carried me. Through the fire. When the convoy burned." The trauma bay went completely still. Maya gently removed his hand. "You're confused. The pain medication—" "No." The man's voice cracked. "Afghanistan. Operation Iron Shepherd. You pulled 8 of us out when command left us to die." One of the nurses gasped. Dr. Cross's face went pale. "What?" But Maya was already moving, her focus shifting back to the immediate crisis. "He has internal bleeding, likely splenic rupture or liver laceration from the fall. The leg wound is secondary. He needs a fast exam and surgical consult right now, or he'll be dead in 5 minutes." For a moment, nobody moved. They all just stared at her, this quiet, invisible nurse who suddenly sounded like someone else entirely. Then Dr. Cross's brain caught up. "Get me ultrasound. Now. Someone page general surgery." The room erupted back into motion. A portable ultrasound machine appeared within seconds. Dr. Cross ran the probe across the patient's abdomen, and his face went gray when the screen lit up. Free fluid, lots of it, blood pooling in the abdominal cavity. Jesus Christ, he breathed. She's right. He's been bleeding out this whole time. The patient was already being prepped for emergency surgery, the team moving with renewed urgency. Maya stepped back again, returning to her invisible position against the wall. Her hands were steady, her breathing was calm, but her mind was somewhere else, somewhere hot and loud and filled with smoke. 10 minutes later, the patient was rushed to the OR. The trauma bay slowly emptied as nurses cleaned up and reset the room for the next emergency. Dr. Cross stood at the computer station, typing notes with shaking hands. Maya started to leave. "Reeves." His voice stopped her at the door. "Wait." She turned slowly. Dr. Cross stared at her like he'd never seen her before. "What he said? About Afghanistan. Is that true?" "I used to be a combat medic," Maya said evenly. "That was a long time ago." "He said you saved his life." "He's confused from blood loss. He knew your face. He called you—" "I need to check on my other patients." Maya's voice didn't change, but there was something final in it. A door closing. Dr. Cross hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We'll talk about this later." Maya left without responding. She made it halfway down the corridor before her hands started shaking. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Maya moved through her tasks on autopilot, but she could feel the stares from the other staff. Word traveled fast in hospitals. By the time she clocked out at 11 p.m., half the ICU had heard some version of the story. The quiet nurse was secretly a war hero. The invisible girl had saved lives in combat. The woman nobody noticed had apparently done something extraordinary. Maya grabbed her bag from her locker and headed for the parking garage without talking to anyone. Her apartment was small and dark, the kind of place that didn't feel like home so much as a place to sleep between shifts. She dropped her keys on the counter, kicked off her shoes, and stood in the kitchen for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then she walked to the bedroom closet and pulled out a box from the top shelf. Inside were things she hadn't looked at in 3 years: dog tags, unit patches, a folded flag, photographs of people she didn't talk about anymore. And buried at the bottom, a combat medic badge she'd earned in a place most people only saw on the news. She picked up the badge and turned it over in her hands. Desert Angel. She hadn't heard that name in a long time. Somewhere across town, in the surgical ICU of Carrington Memorial, the construction foreman named Marcus Webb lay unconscious and intubated, his abdomen stitched back together after emergency surgery. The surgeons had removed a ruptured spleen and repaired a torn liver. Another 10 minutes and he would have bled to death internally. But he was alive, stable, recovering. And when he woke up in 12 hours, the first thing he would do was make a phone call that would burn Carrington Memorial Hospital to the ground. 3 days later, Maya arrived for her shift and immediately knew something was wrong. The ICU felt different, tense. Nurses huddled in small groups, whispering. Dr. Cross stood at the nurses' station with his arms crossed, talking in low tones with the hospital administrator, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Hale. Maya clocked in and started reviewing her patient assignments, trying to ignore the stares. One of the other nurses, Jenna, sidled up next to her. "Did you hear?" "Hear what?" "That guy from the construction site, Marcus Webb? He's been asking for you. Like, specifically. By name." Maya kept her eyes on the computer screen. "He probably wants to say thank you." "Yeah, but—" Jenna lowered her voice. "He also called some military hotline or something. There's a whole thing happening. Administration is freaking out." Maya's hand stilled on the keyboard. "What kind of thing?" Before Jenna could answer, Patricia Hale's voice cut across the unit. "Nurse Reeves? My office. Now!" Every head in the ICU turned. Maya closed the computer screen and followed the administrator down the hallway, past the break room, past the supply closets, into a small office with glass walls that overlooked the parking lot. Dr. Cross was already there, sitting in one of the chairs. He didn't look at her when she entered. Patricia closed the door and folded her arms. She was in her 50s, gray hair pulled back in a bun, the kind of administrator who'd spent her whole career managing problems before they became public scandals. "Sit down, Maya." Maya sat. Her hands rested calmly in her lap. Patricia studied her for a long moment. I've been reviewing your personnel file. You didn't mention your military service on your resume. It didn't seem relevant to the position. You were a combat medic. Yes. For how long? 6 years. And you left the military 3 years ago. Honorable discharge. Is that correct? Maya hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Yes. Were you deployed overseas? Multiple times. Where? Iraq, Afghanistan, other places. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Other places? Classified deployments, Maya said quietly. I'm not authorized to discuss specifics. Dr. Cross finally spoke up. The patient, Marcus Webb, claims you saved his life during a classified military operation 7 years ago. He says you were part of an elite medical evacuation unit. He says, Cross hesitated. He says you disobeyed orders to rescue soldiers that command had abandoned during an ambush. The office went silent. Maya kept her face neutral. I don't recall the specific mission he's referring to. Bullshit, Patricia said flatly. I called the Department of Defense this morning. Your entire service record is classified under federal seal. When I asked why, they told me to direct all inquiries to a special investigations unit. Do you know how unusual that is? Maya said nothing. Patricia leaned forward. What did you do? My job. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you. Dr. Cross ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. Maya, if you did something heroic, why hide it? Why work here as a regular ICU nurse when you clearly have advanced trauma experience? Because regular ICU nurses don't get court-martialed, Maya thought. Because heroes who disobey orders become examples. Out loud, she said, I wanted a quiet life. Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression changed immediately. Excuse me. She stepped into the hallway, leaving Maya alone with Dr. Cross. He stared at her, searching her face. You could have let me fail the other day. You could have stayed quiet and let me miss the internal bleeding, but you spoke up, even after I shut you down. Why? Because he was dying. Most people would have covered their ass. Let the attending make the mistake, protected themselves. Maya met his eyes. I'm not most people. Dr. Cross opened his mouth to respond, but Patricia burst back into the office, her face pale. There are federal agents in the lobby, she said, her voice tight. Military investigators. They're asking for you. Maya's stomach dropped. They have authorization from the DOD, Patricia continued. They want to speak with you immediately regarding Operation Iron Shepherd and the status of Marcus Webb. Dr. Cross stood up. What the hell is Operation Iron Shepherd? Nobody answered him. Maya rose slowly from her chair, her mind racing. Marcus hadn't just recognized her. He'd reported her. After 7 years of silence, after 3 years of hiding, someone had opened the door she'd spent so long keeping closed. I'll go talk to them, she said quietly. Patricia grabbed her arm. Maya, what is happening? Should I call a lawyer? No. Maya gently pulled free. This is between me and the military. She walked out of the office, down the hallway, past the ICU where nurses and doctors watched her go, and took the elevator to the main floor. The lobby of Carrington Memorial was bright and sterile, filled with anxious families and tired visitors. And standing near the entrance, wearing dark suits and expressions that revealed nothing, were 2 men and a woman with credentials clipped to their belts. Military Criminal Investigation Command. The woman stepped forward. She was in her 40s, blonde hair cut short, gray eyes that missed nothing. Maya Reeves? Yes, I'm Special Agent Kincaid. We need to ask you some questions about an incident that occurred 7 years ago during a classified operation in Kandahar province. Maya's heart hammered in her chest, but her voice stayed calm. I signed non-disclosure agreements. I can't discuss that. We're aware. Those NDAs are being reviewed as we speak. Marcus Webb has filed a formal complaint with the Inspector General's office. He's alleging that senior officers committed criminal negligence resulting in the deaths of American soldiers. He claims you have first-hand knowledge of those events. Maya felt the walls closing in. I don't know what he told you. He told us everything, Kincaid said, and he's not the only one. We've been contacted by 3 other soldiers from that operation. They all say the same thing, that you tried to report what happened, that you were silenced. that the officers responsible were protected while you were forced out. The lobby seemed to tilt. "We need your statement," Kincaid continued. "Officially, on the record, we're reopening Operation Iron Shepherd." Maya stared at her, the words not quite registering. After 7 years of silence, after 3 years of building a new life, of becoming invisible, of trying to forget, they were reopening it. "I can't," Maya whispered. "Yes, you can. The protection orders are being lifted. You're free to speak." "You don't understand." "We understand perfectly." Kincaid's voice softened slightly. "We know what they did to you. We know how they buried this. But it's over now. The truth is coming out whether you help us or not. The question is whether you want to be part of bringing them down." Maya's hands shook. Behind her, she could feel eyes watching. Hospital staff, visitors, people who had no idea what was happening but sensed the drama unfolding. One of the male agents spoke up. "We have a secure location set up nearby. You don't have to do this in public, but we need your answer. Are you willing to testify?" Maya thought about Marcus Webb lying in the ICU upstairs. She thought about the 7 other soldiers she'd pulled out of that burning convoy while officers screamed at her over the radio to retreat. She thought about the 13 men and women who hadn't made it out, the ones who died because command decided it was too dangerous to send help. She thought about the general who'd called her reckless, the colonel who'd threatened her with a court-martial for insubordination, the investigators who'd made it very clear that speaking publicly would destroy her life. And then she thought about the quiet ICU nurse she'd become, the woman nobody noticed, the person who'd buried Desert Angel so deep she almost believed that part of her was gone. Maya looked Agent Kincaid in the eye. "I'll testify." The words hung in the air for 3 seconds. Then the hospital's emergency doors exploded open and 6 more federal agents poured into the lobby, moving fast, hands on weapons, voices shouting into radios. Kincaid spun around. "What the hell? We have credible threats against the witness," one of the agents barked. "Command wants her in protective custody now." Maya's blood turned to ice. Threats from who? But before anyone could answer, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with trembling hands. Unknown number. A text message. 5 words that made her knees go weak. "Stay silent or Marcus dies." Maya stared at the screen until Agent Kincaid grabbed her wrist. "Show me." Maya held up the phone. Kincaid's jaw tightened as she read the message, then immediately barked orders into her radio. "We need security on the 4th floor ICU. Patient Marcus Webb. Right now. Nobody gets near that room without federal clearance." 2 agents sprinted toward the elevators. The lobby erupted into controlled chaos as more federal personnel flooded through the doors, badges flashing, voices clipped and urgent. Visitors backed away. Hospital security stood frozen, completely out of their depth. "Who sent that?" Maya's voice came out flat, almost disconnected. "We'll trace it." Kincaid gestured to one of the other agents. "But right now we're moving you to a secure location, non-negotiable." Maya pulled her arm back. "I'm not leaving Marcus. You're not safe here. Neither is he. That message came through 30 seconds after you told me to testify. Whoever sent it is watching us right now." Kincaid's eyes swept the lobby. The families clustered near the gift shop, the man reading a newspaper by the windows, the woman talking on her phone near the volunteer desk. Any of them could be surveillance. All of them could be innocent. "Then we secure this entire floor," Kincaid said. "But you don't go anywhere alone. Understood?" Maya nodded. They moved toward the elevators as a unit, agents forming a loose perimeter around her. Maya caught sight of Patricia Hale standing near the nurses' station on the main floor, her face pale and confused, phone pressed to her ear. Their eyes met for a second. Patricia mouthed something that might have been, "What the hell is happening?" But Maya turned away before she had to answer. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt like descending into a cave. Nobody spoke. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Maya watched the numbers climb and thought about the last time she'd received a direct threat. 7 years ago. An encrypted message sent to her personal email 2 days after she'd tried to file a formal complaint about Operation Iron Shepherd. Accidents happen to people who don't follow orders. She'd deleted it, kept quiet, accepted the discharge, disappeared. And now someone was dragging it all back into the light. The elevator doors opened onto the ICU, and Maya immediately saw the difference. Federal agents positioned at every entrance, Hospital security, looking nervous and useless. Dr. Cross standing near the nurses' station, arms crossed, face red with barely controlled anger. He spotted Maya and strode toward her. What the hell is going on? I have armed federal agents taking over my ICU. I have administrators screaming at me, and nobody will tell me why. Dr. Cross. Kincaid stepped between them smoothly. This is now a federal investigation. I need you to step back. This is my hospital, and this is a matter of national security. Step back, or I'll have you removed. Cross's mouth opened and closed. He looked at Maya like she'd personally betrayed him, then turned and walked away, muttering under his breath. Maya moved toward Marcus Webb's room. 2 agents stood outside the door, hands resting near their sidearms. Through the glass wall, she could see Marcus lying motionless in the bed, intubated, sedated, completely unaware of the storm gathering around him. She pressed her palm against the glass. He shouldn't have called, she said quietly. He should have stayed quiet. Kincaid stood beside her. Would you have? Maya didn't answer. 7 soldiers reached out to us, Kincaid continued, in the last 72 hours, all from Operation Iron Shepherd. Marcus was the first, but once he opened the door, the others followed. They've been waiting 7 years for someone to stand up. They'll get hurt. They're already hurt. They've been carrying this for 7 years. You all have. Maya turned to face her. You don't understand what you're dealing with. The officers who made those decisions, they're not some low-level commanders. They're generals now. One of them is being considered for chairman of the Joint Chiefs. They buried this once. They'll bury it again. Not this time. Kincaid's voice was steel. We have congressional oversight, inspector general involvement. This isn't going away. Then people are going to die. The words hung in the sterile air between them. Kincaid studied Maya's face. You really believe that? I know it. Maya looked back at Marcus through the glass. I watched 13 soldiers die because command decided their lives weren't worth the risk. You think those same people won't kill a handful of witnesses to protect their careers? Before Kincaid could respond, another agent approached, holding a tablet. We traced the message, burner phone, bounced through 3 proxy servers. Whoever sent it knew what they were doing. Chio, can you track the location? Working on it, but the agent hesitated. There's something else. We pulled security footage from the lobby. Check this out. He turned the tablet around. Maya watched the screen as the footage rewound, showing the moment the federal agents had entered the hospital. And there, in the background near the gift shop, a man in a dark jacket and baseball cap stood with his phone out, clearly watching the scene unfold. He's been in that spot for 40 minutes, the agent said. Hasn't bought anything. Hasn't moved except to watch you. Maya's stomach twisted. Where is he now? Gone. Left through the south exit approximately 90 seconds after you got on the elevator. Kincaid swore under her breath. Get me every camera feed from this hospital. I want his face, his vehicle, everything. The agent nodded and disappeared down the hallway. Maya's phone buzzed again. Another message. You have 48 hours to decline testimony. After that, we start with Webb. Then the others. Then you. Her hands went cold. She showed Kincaid the screen. 48 hours, Maya said. That's how long we have before they start killing people. Kincaid grabbed her radio. I need protection details on all witnesses immediately. Full coverage, no gaps. She turned back to Maya. We're moving you to a safe house tonight. No arguments. What about my patients? You're done here. Effective immediately. I can't just... You don't have a choice. Kincaid's voice softened slightly. Maya, these people already tried to destroy your life once. They failed. You're still here. That terrifies them. So now they're going to try something worse. And the only way to stop them is to finish what you started 7 years ago. Maya looked around the ICU. The monitors beeping. The nurses moving quietly between rooms. The ordinary rhythm of a place where people came to heal. She'd built this life specifically because it was ordinary. Because nobody asked questions. Because she could disappear into the background and forget what she'd seen, what she'd done, who she'd been. Desert Angel was supposed to be dead. But some things don't stay buried. Okay, Maya said. Tell me what you need. They moved her out of the hospital through a service entrance 2 hours later, surrounded by agents, moving fast through concrete corridors that smelled like disinfectant and old food. A black SUV waited in the loading dock, engine running, windows tinted dark. Maya climbed into the back seat. Kincaid slid in beside her. 2 more agents took the front. "Where are we going?" Maya asked. "Secure facility outside the city. We've got 3 other witnesses already there. You'll give your formal statement tonight, and then we build the case." The SUV pulled out into evening traffic. Dalton Ridge stretched around them, strip malls and apartment complexes, fast food restaurants and gas stations, the kind of sprawling American city that looked the same everywhere. Maya watched the familiar streets slide past and felt like she was leaving herself behind. Her phone buzzed. She almost didn't look, expecting another threat. But it was Jenna from the ICU. "Everyone's talking about you. What's happening? Are you okay?" Maya typed back quickly. "Can't explain. Tell Dr. Cross I'm sorry." She turned the phone off before Jenna could respond. "You can't contact anyone for the next 48 hours, Kincaid said, watching her. "Not friends, not family, not coworkers. Complete communications blackout." "I don't have family." "No one?" "My parents died when I was 19. No siblings, no husband, no kids." Maya stared out the window. "That's why I joined the military. Didn't have anywhere else to go." Kincaid nodded slowly. "And after you left the service?" "Nursing school, then Carrington Memorial. That's it." "No relationships? Nobody who'd notice if you disappeared?" The question landed harder than Kincaid probably intended. Maya thought about the other nurses who didn't invite her places. The doctors who forgot her name. The apartment she rented month to month because she never planned to stay long enough to matter. "No," she said quietly. Nobody would notice. They drove in silence for 20 minutes, leaving the city center behind, heading into the industrial outskirts where warehouses crouched under sodium lights and semi-trucks rumbled past like steel dinosaurs. The safe house turned out to be a nondescript office building with reinforced doors and security cameras covering every angle. Inside, it looked like a cross between a hotel and a prison. Narrow hallways, small rooms with basic furniture, armed guards at every checkpoint. Kincaid led Maya to a conference room on the 2nd floor. 3 people sat around a table, 2 men and a woman, all in their 30s or 40s, all wearing the particular kind of tension that came from revisiting trauma they'd tried to forget. "Maya Reeves," Kincaid said. "Meet James Hartley, David Ortega, and Rachel Kim." They were all part of the convoy during Operation Iron Shepherd. Maya recognized them immediately. James had been a staff sergeant, drove the lead vehicle. David had been injured early, took shrapnel to his shoulder. Rachel had been communications, kept calling for backup even when command stopped responding. They all stared at her. James stood first, moving slowly like his bones hurt. "Desert Angel." "Don't call me that." "Why not? That's what you were." Maya sat down at the table without responding. Kincaid excused herself, leaving the 4 of them alone in the sterile conference room with its white walls and flickering fluorescent lights. 7 years, Rachel said finally. "I tried to find you after we got back. You just vanished." "I was told to vanish. By who?" "By people who wanted Operation Iron Shepherd to disappear." David leaned forward, his eyes hard. "They threatened you." It wasn't a question. Maya nodded. "They made it very clear that speaking up would be a mistake. They offered me an honorable discharge if I signed the NDAs and kept quiet. The alternative was a court-martial for insubordination." "Jesus," James rubbed his face. "We had no idea." "You weren't supposed to. We thought you were being protected. They told us you were getting a medal, some classified commendation. I got a discharge and a warning." The room went silent. Rachel's voice came out strained. "The others who died, the 13 we couldn't save, did command ever—" "No." Maya cut her off. "They listed them as combat casualties, standard enemy engagement. Nobody ever mentioned that we requested evacuation support 6 times and got denied every time." David slammed his hand on the table. "They left us there to die." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." His voice rose. "I have nightmares every single night about that convoy burning. I hear the screams. I smell the fuel. I wake up convinced I'm still trapped inside while the ammunition cooks off around me. And for 7 years I thought it was just war, just bad luck." But Marcus called me 3 days ago and told me the truth. That command had helicopters 20 minutes away, that they could have pulled us out, that they chose not to because the mission was classified, and they didn't want to risk the exposure. Maya met his eyes. I tried to tell investigators. They buried it. Why? Because the officer who made that call is now General William Taggart, and General Taggart is being considered for the highest military position in the country. If the truth about Iron Shepherd comes out, his career is over. So is everyone who helped him cover it up. James stood and walked to the window, staring out at the parking lot. We're fighting a general. We're fighting several generals, Maya corrected. Taggart wasn't alone. He had support up the chain of command. People who agreed that 13 soldiers were acceptable losses to protect operational security. That's not how it works, Rachel said. You don't abandon your people, ever. Tell that to them. The door opened and Kincaid returned, carrying a stack of folders. We're ready to take your statements, individually. Maya, you're first. Maya followed her down the hallway to a smaller room with a camera mounted in the corner and a recorder on the table. 2 other investigators sat waiting, an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes, and a younger woman who looked barely out of law school. The older man gestured to a chair. I'm Investigator Walsh. This is Investigator Monroe. We're with the Department of Defense Inspector General's office. Everything you say here is being recorded and will be submitted as evidence in the official inquiry. Do you understand? Yes. Please state your full name and service record for the record. Maya took a breath. Maya Elizabeth Reeves, former specialist, United States Army, combat medic, served 6 years active duty, deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and classified locations, honorably discharged 3 years ago. And you were present during Operation Iron Shepherd on November 7th, 7 years ago? Yes? Describe what happened. So she did. She told them about the convoy of 5 vehicles moving through Kandahar province on what was supposed to be a routine supply run. She told them about the ambush that came out of nowhere. RPGs and small arms fire ripping through the trucks, vehicles flipping, soldiers scrambling for cover. She told them about calling for evacuation support and hearing command refuse, about calling again 20 minutes later with casualty reports and getting told to hold position, about the 3rd call, the 4th, the 5th, each one more desperate, watching soldiers bleed out because they didn't have the equipment for field surgery. She told them about the 6th call when she stopped asking permission and started demanding. I told command that if they didn't send helicopters, I was taking the survivors and walking out on foot, Maya said, her voice steady despite the memories. The commanding officer, Colonel Harris at the time, told me that any movement without authorization would be considered desertion. I told him 13 soldiers were already dead and 8 more would die in the next hour if we didn't get medical evacuation. He said the risk was too high. The area wasn't secure. Sending helicopters would compromise the mission. What mission? Walsh asked. I don't know. They never told us. We were just transporting supplies. But apparently those supplies were important enough that our lives weren't. What did you do? Maya's hands curled into fists on the table. I triaged the wounded, loaded everyone who could move into the one vehicle that was still running. And I drove out, straight through hostile territory. No air support, no backup, just me and 8 half-dead soldiers. That's when they started calling you Desert Angel. That's when they started court-martial proceedings against me. Monroe leaned forward. But you saved those soldiers. I disobeyed direct orders in a war zone during active combat. That's grounds for serious punishment. Walsh studied her. Why did they let you go? Because I had proof. I'd recorded the radio communications, every request for support, every denial, every excuse. I told them if they court-martialed me, I'd submit that recording as evidence. So they offered me a deal, honorable discharge, sealed records, and I disappear. In exchange, I destroy the recording and sign ND. Does that make it illegal for me to discuss Operation Iron Shepherd ever again? The room went completely silent. Walsh and Monroe exchanged glances. You have a recording, Walsh said slowly. Had. They made me delete it in front of witnesses. Do you have copies? Maya looked him dead in the eye. I was 23 years old and scared. They had lawyers and generals and people who made it very clear that keeping that recording would destroy my life, so I deleted it. Monroe's face fell, but Maya wasn't finished. However, she continued, I did upload it to a secure server before I deleted the original file, and that server is still active. Walsh's eyebrows shot up. You have a backup. I have a backup. Where? Encrypted cloud storage, accessible only with a password I've never written down or shared with anyone. Can you access it now? Maya pulled out her phone, opened a browser, navigated to a website that looked like a generic cloud storage login page, entered a username and password. A single audio file appeared. She turned the phone around so they could see the screen. Walsh stared at it like she'd just handed him a nuclear weapon. How long is this recording? 42 minutes. It covers all 6 requests for evacuation support and the command responses. And you're willing to submit this as evidence? Maya thought about the text message. Stay silent or Marcus dies. She thought about General Taggart and Colonel Harris and all the other officers who'd decided that covering their asses was more important than saving lives. She thought about Desert Angel, the woman who'd refused to leave soldiers behind even when command ordered her to. Yes, she said. I'm willing. Monroe grabbed a laptop and pulled up audio analysis software. We need to verify authenticity. Can you download it? Maya downloaded the file and handed over her phone. Monroe plugged it into the laptop and started running tests, checking for signs of editing, manipulation, digital artifacts that would indicate tampering. 10 minutes later, Monroe looked up. It's clean. Original file metadata, no signs of alteration. This is legitimate. Walsh stood up, his face grim. We need to move fast. Once this goes into evidence, Taggart and his people will know. They'll come after you hard. They're already coming after me. Not like this. This recording ends careers, probably results in criminal charges. They'll do anything to stop it. Kincaid appeared in the doorway. We have a problem. Everyone turned. Marcus Webb's room was just breached. Someone got past hospital security, past our agents, and disconnected his ventilator. He's in respiratory arrest. Maya was on her feet before Kincaid finished speaking. Is he alive? They got him back, but it was close. Whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. They made it look like equipment failure. Show me the security footage. They crowded around Kincaid's laptop as she pulled up the hospital's camera feeds. The timestamp showed 20 minutes ago. A figure in scrubs and a surgical mask entered Marcus's room, moved to the ventilator, and calmly disconnected the main tube. The alarms didn't go off for 30 seconds, just long enough for the person to slip back out and disappear down a service stairwell. Can you see their face? Maya asked. Kincaid zoomed in, but the mask and surgical cap covered everything. No, but look at the badge. The figure wore a hospital ID badge. Kincaid enhanced the image. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, she read, ICU attending physician. Maya's blood went cold. That's not possible. Why? Because Dr. Mitchell is 60 years old and barely 5 feet tall. That person is at least 6 feet and moves like someone half that age. Walsh swore. They used a stolen badge, which means they have access to hospital personnel records, Kincaid said. They knew which badge to clone. They knew which areas wouldn't have cameras. They knew Marcus's room number and his exact medical status. Maya stared at the screen. They have someone inside the hospital, or multiple someones. Kincaid closed the laptop. We're evacuating Marcus tonight, moving him to a military medical facility with better security. But Maya, this proves what you said earlier. They're willing to kill to keep this quiet. Then we need to move faster. Agreed. Walsh, how quickly can you submit that recording to the IG? I can have it filed by morning, but once it's in the system, it becomes public record during the hearing. There's no taking it back. Maya thought about the 48-hour deadline, about Marcus barely surviving an assassination attempt, about the other soldiers who'd finally found the courage to speak up after 7 years of silence. Submit it, she said. Tonight. Walsh nodded and left the room, taking the laptop with him. Kincaid turned to Maya. You should get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. I can't sleep. Try anyway. Maya let Kincaid lead her to a small bedroom on the 3rd floor. It had a narrow bed, a single window with reinforced glass, and nothing else. She sat on the edge of the mattress and stared at the wall. Her phone buzzed. She'd forgotten to turn it off. Another message. But this time from a number she recognized. Dr. Cross. I don't know what you're involved in, but half my ICU is in lockdown. Federal agents are questioning my staff, and Marcus Webb almost died tonight. If you know something that can stop this, you need to speak up. People are getting hurt. Maya typed back slowly. I am speaking up. That's why people are getting hurt. She turned the phone off before he could respond. Morning came too fast. Maya woke to the sound of voices in the hallway and footsteps moving quickly past her door. She checked her watch, 6 a.m. She'd managed maybe 3 hours of sleep. When she opened the door, an agent was standing right outside. Ms. Reeves, Agent Kincaid needs you downstairs immediately. Maya followed him to the conference room. Everyone was already there. James, David, Rachel, Walsh, Monroe, and Kincaid. They all looked exhausted and wired, the particular combination that came from staying up all night dealing with a crisis. What happened? Maya asked. Kincaid turned a laptop toward her. This happened. The screen showed a news website. The headline made Maya's stomach drop. Breaking. Pentagon launches investigation into alleged cover-up of military operation. Below it, a subheading, classified recording surfaces showing commanders denied evacuation during deadly ambush. It leaked, Maya whispered. Not leaked, Walsh corrected. Someone at the Pentagon released it intentionally. The recording was submitted to the Inspector General at midnight. By 2 a.m., it was on every major news network. Who released it? We don't know. But whoever did it just declared war on everyone involved in covering up Iron Shepherd. Maya scrolled through the article. It didn't name her specifically, but it described the ambush, the denied evacuation requests, the deaths of 13 soldiers. It mentioned General Taggart by name, and at the bottom, a quote from a Department of Defense spokesperson. We take these allegations extremely seriously and are conducting a full investigation. Taggart's finished, James said from across the room. His confirmation hearing is in 3 days. There's no way he survives this. Don't be so sure, Kincaid said. He's already released a statement denying everything. Claims the recording is fabricated. Says it's a political hit job designed to derail his appointment. Can he prove it's fake? Rachel asked. No, but he doesn't have to. He just has to create enough doubt, muddy the waters, make it a he said, she said until the news cycle moves on. David shook his head. The recording is real. Anyone with basic forensic analysis can verify that. And by the time they do, Taggart will have spent 3 days on every news show in America calling it a smear campaign. Kincaid pulled up another window on the laptop. Look at this. It was a statement from General Taggart's legal team, posted 2 hours ago. General Taggart categorically denies these false and defamatory allegations. The so-called recording is a manufactured piece of propaganda designed to destroy a decorated officer's reputation. The individuals making these claims are disgruntled former service members with personal grievances. General Taggart looks forward to clearing his name and exposing this conspiracy for what it is. Maya read it twice. He's calling us liars. Worse, he's calling you unstable. There are already opinion pieces circulating that suggest you have PTSD and fabricated the recording as part of some breakdown. That's insane. That's strategy. He's getting ahead of the narrative. By the time the truth comes out, he'll have already convinced half the country that you're unreliable. Monroe spoke up from the corner. We have independent verification, multiple witnesses, physical evidence from the convoy site. This isn't just your word against his. It doesn't matter. Kincaid's voice was flat. This is going to come down to who the public believes. A decorated general with 40 years of service, or a group of former soldiers with classified NDAs, and a recording that mysteriously appears 7 years after the fact. The room fell into tense silence. Maya looked around at the other survivors. They all wore the same expression, exhaustion, anger, and something deeper, something that looked like defeat before the fight even started. No, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. No, Maya repeated, louder this time. We didn't survive that ambush just to let them bury us again. Taggart can call us liars all he wants. But we have proof. We have the truth. And we're going to make sure everyone hears it. How? James asked. He controls the narrative right now. Maya pulled out her phone and opened the news article again, scrolling to the comments section. Hundreds of comments already, most of them arguing about whether the recording was real or fake. But buried in the chaos, she found what she was looking for. A comment from someone with the username IronConvoy7. I was there, Desert Angel saved my life. This is real. Another comment from USAF_retired. I flew medevac in that region. Command denied our request to support that convoy multiple times. This checks out. More comments appeared as she scrolled. Veterans, active duty military, family members of soldiers who died in the ambush. We're not alone, Maya said, turning the screen around. Look, Kincaid leaned in, reading. Her expression shifted. They're coming forward, she said, on their own, without being asked, because they've been waiting for someone to tell the truth. Maya's voice steadied. Taggart thinks he can control this, but he can't control everyone. Walsh's phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, then hung up. Congress just announced emergency hearings. Armed Services Committee. They want testimony from all witnesses within 72 hours. Can they do that? Rachel asked. They just did. Kincaid stood up. Then we have 3 days to prepare. Maya, you're going to be the primary witness. They'll question you first. Everything rides on your testimony. What about Taggart? He'll testify too, which means you'll be in the same room with him. Maya's hands went cold at the thought. General William Taggart, the man who'd left her and 13 others to die, the man who'd threatened her into silence, the man who'd built a decorated career on covering up his mistakes. She was going to face him in front of Congress and the entire country. I'm ready, she said. Kincaid studied her face. Are you? Because Taggart's lawyers are going to rip you apart. They'll question your service record, your mental health, your motives. They'll make you look unstable, vindictive, maybe even treasonous. Can you handle that? Maya thought about the last 7 years. The quiet life she'd built. The invisible nurse nobody noticed. The woman who'd buried Desert Angel so deep, she'd almost convinced herself that person was gone. But Desert Angel had never really left. She'd just been waiting for the right moment to surface. I'm not the scared 23-year-old they silenced 7 years ago, Maya said. They taught me to stay quiet. But quiet doesn't save lives, and I'm done protecting the people who left us to die. Before anyone could respond, an explosion shook the building. The lights flickered. Alarms shrieked. Someone screamed. Kincaid grabbed her weapon and ran for the door. Everyone down! Now! Maya hit the floor as gunfire erupted somewhere below them. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard voices shouting, boots pounding upstairs, and the distinctive crack of assault rifles firing in close quarters. The safe house wasn't safe anymore. Maya's training kicked in before her conscious mind caught up. She rolled under the conference table, grabbed Rachel's arm, and pulled her down hard. James was already moving, shoving David behind an overturned filing cabinet while Walsh and Monroe scrambled for the door. Another explosion rocked the building. Closer this time. The window spiderwebbed but didn't shatter, reinforced glass holding against the blast. Kincaid was shouting into her radio, weapon drawn, voice steady despite the chaos. Second floor compromised, multiple hostiles, we need backup now. The door burst open. Not hostiles, 3 federal agents, faces streaked with soot, one bleeding from a gash across his forehead. Buildings breached, the lead agent gasped. They came through the loading dock with shaped charges, at least 6 shooters, military-grade weapons. They knew exactly where to hit. Kincaid grabbed his vest. Casualties? 4 agents down on the first floor, 2 civilians from the office next door. They're not taking prisoners. Maya's stomach lurched. This wasn't a threat anymore. This was a full assault. We need to evacuate the witnesses, Walsh said, his voice cracking slightly. Get them out of here before... Gunfire erupted in the hallway. The distinctive chatter of automatic weapons, close enough that Maya could hear brass casings hitting the floor. Someone screamed. The sound cut off abruptly. Kincaid moved to the doorway, weapon up, and fired 3 quick shots down the corridor. They're coming up the east stairwell. We've got maybe 2 minutes. The roof, Monroe said. There's helicopter access. They'll be covering it. Kincaid ejected her magazine, checked the rounds, slammed it back in. We go down. Service tunnels connect to the parking structure 2 buildings over. It's our only shot. James stood, his face pale, but determined. I know how to move under fire. So do I, Maya said. David was shaking, his hands trembling as he gripped the edge of the filing cabinet. I can't do this again. I can't. Rachel grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. Yes, you can, just like last time. You stay with me. You don't think. You just move. More gunfire outside. Someone was screaming orders in clipped military cadence. Maya recognized the tone. Not police, not standard security. These were professionals. "Now," Kincaid said. "We move now." They went in a tight group, Kincaid at the front, 2 agents at the rear, everyone else sandwiched in the middle. The hallway was full of smoke, emergency lights strobing red, alarm bells hammering at Maya's eardrums. Bodies on the floor, agents she'd seen earlier, now sprawled in spreading pools of blood. She forced herself not to look at their faces. The stairwell door was blocked by debris from the second explosion. Kincaid and the other agents kicked it clear, shouldered it open. The stairs descended into darkness, the emergency lighting damaged or deliberately disabled. "Night vision," one of the agents said, pulling out equipment. "No time." Kincaid started down, using her weapon-mounted flashlight to cut through the smoke. "Stay close. Watch your footing." Maya counted steps as they descended. 12 to the landing. Turn. 12 more to the next floor. The air got thicker, harder to breathe, tasting of cordite and burning plastic. Behind them, more gunfire echoed through the stairwell. The shooters were searching floor by floor. They reached the basement level. Kincaid pushed through a heavy steel door into a maintenance corridor. Concrete walls, exposed pipes, flickering bulbs casting harsh shadows. A service tunnel stretched ahead, narrow and claustrophobic. "Move fast," Kincaid ordered. "Don't stop for anything." They ran. Maya's lungs burned. Her legs ached. Behind her, she could hear David's ragged breathing, Rachel murmuring encouragement, James keeping pace despite the limp he'd carried since the original ambush 7 years ago. The tunnel seemed endless, stretching and stretching, emergency exit signs appearing every 50 feet like false promises. A door slammed open behind them. "Contact rear," one of the agents shouted. Muzzle flashes lit up the tunnel. Bullets sparked off concrete and pipes. Everyone dropped flat. Kincaid returned fire, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Maya covered her ears, pressed herself against the cold floor, felt something wet spreading beneath her hand. Water from a broken pipe, she hoped, not blood. "Keep moving." Kincaid was reloading, still firing. "I'll hold them." "You can't," Walsh started. "That's an order. Get the witnesses out." Maya grabbed Walsh's arm and pulled him forward. They ran in a crouch, the other agent covering them, James helping David stay upright. Rachel was crying but still moving, her training from 7 years ago carrying her through muscle memory. The tunnel branched, left toward the parking structure, right toward... Maya didn't know, didn't matter. They went left. Another door. This one locked. The agent shot the mechanism, kicked it open. They spilled into an underground garage, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, rows of vehicles parked in neat lines. The agent pointed toward a black SUV near the exit ramp. "That one. Keys should be..." His head snapped back. Blood sprayed. He collapsed without making a sound. Maya saw the shooter on the second level of the parking structure, partially concealed behind a concrete pillar. She grabbed David and threw both of them behind a sedan as more shots rang out. Glass exploded. Metal pinged. Rachel and James scattered in different directions. Walsh had the keys. He'd grabbed them from the dead agent and was crawling toward the SUV, staying low, using parked cars for cover. Maya could see him shaking, could see the wet stain spreading down his leg, hit but still moving. "Walsh, wait." He didn't wait. He lunged for the SUV, got the door open, blood leaving a trail across the concrete. The shooter adjusted aim. Maya didn't think. She bolted from cover, running in a zigzag pattern, drawing fire away from Walsh. Bullets chased her across the garage. One passed close enough that she felt the heat. She dove behind a pickup truck, gasping. James appeared from nowhere with a tire iron in his hands. He'd circled around, climbed onto the second level using the pedestrian stairs, and now he was rushing the shooter from behind. The shooter turned, but too late. James swung the tire iron like a baseball bat, connected with the shooter's head. The man dropped. "Go!" James screamed. "I'll cover!" Maya ran for the SUV. Walsh had started the engine but was slumped against the steering wheel, barely conscious. She yanked the driver's door open, pulled him into the passenger seat, climbed behind the wheel. Rachel appeared, diving into the back. David followed, his face white with shock. "James!" Rachel screamed out the window. "Come on!" James was already running, but 2 more shooters emerged from the stairwell behind him. He saw them, changed direction, headed for a different vehicle. "I'll draw them off. Get her out of here." "No! That recording is the only thing that matters. Go!" Maya didn't wait. She slammed the SUV into gear and floored the accelerator. Tires screamed. The vehicle shot up the exit ramp, burst through the automatic gate, and roared into morning sunlight. Behind them, gunfire continued. Maya checked the rearview mirror and saw James disappearing around a corner, still running, still fighting. She drove. Dalton Ridge morning traffic swallowed them within seconds. Commuters heading to work, delivery trucks making rounds, everything normal and mundane and utterly surreal. Maya wove through the cars, running red lights, ignoring the horns. Walsh groaned beside her, his hand pressed against the wound in his leg. "Hospital," he gasped. We can't risk it." Maya's voice came out harder than she intended. "They'll be watching every ER in the city. Then I'm going to bleed out in your front seat." "No, you're not." She pulled into an alley behind a strip mall, killed the engine, and twisted around to check him. The bullet had gone through his outer thigh, messy but not arterial. She could work with this. "Rachel, find me something to use as a bandage. David, check his vitals." They moved automatically, responding to the command in her voice, the voice that had carried through desert ambushes and burning helicopters. Desert Angel's voice. Maya ripped Walsh's pant leg open, assessed the wound. Entry and exit, no bone fragments visible, steady bleeding but not spurting. She grabbed the first aid kit from the SUV's cargo area, found gauze and pressure bandages. "This is going to hurt." "Just do it." She packed the wound, wrapped it tight, secured everything with medical tape. Walsh's face went gray, but he didn't scream. When she finished, his breathing was shallow but steady. "You'll live," Maya said, "but you need a hospital within 6 hours or infection will kill you. Then we have 6 hours to finish this." Rachel leaned forward from the back seat. "James is still back there." "I know. We left him. He made a choice. We don't leave people behind." Rachel's voice broke. "That's what you taught us 7 years ago. We don't leave anyone behind." Maya's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "We left 13 people behind 7 years ago because command wouldn't send help. James just made sure that doesn't happen again. He bought us time. We honor that by using it." Silence filled the SUV. Finally, David spoke, his voice quiet. "Where do we go?" "Good question. The safe house was compromised. The hospital was too obvious. Carrington Memorial was probably under surveillance. Every federal facility in the city could be watched." Maya pulled out her phone. Still had battery. She opened the news app. The attack on the safe house was already breaking news. Federal facility under assault. Multiple casualties. Reporters were speculating about terrorism, gang violence, everything except the truth. But one article caught her eye. Posted 20 minutes ago on a military news site. General Taggart announces press conference for noon today. The subheading, "I will personally address these false allegations and present evidence of a coordinated smear campaign." Maya showed the phone to Walsh. "He's going public." "Of course he is. He's getting ahead of it. By the time Congress holds hearings, he'll have already shaped the narrative." "Then we beat him to it." "How?" Maya thought fast. The recording was already public, but recordings could be dismissed as edited or fabricated. What they needed was something Taggart couldn't spin, something visceral and undeniable. "We go to the press conference," she said. "We show up in person, put our faces on camera, make him look us in the eye while he calls us liars." Walsh stared at her. "That's suicide. His people just tried to kill us." "Exactly, which means he's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. Or they win by eliminating the opposition. Not if the opposition is standing in front of news cameras with the entire country watching." Rachel nodded slowly. "She's right. He can order hits on us in secret, but he can't kill us on live television." "Can't he?" David's voice was bitter. "You saw what just happened. They don't care about witnesses. They don't care about evidence. They only care about control. Then we take control away from them." Maya started the engine again. "Taggart's press conference is at noon. That gives us 3 hours to get there and get inside." "Inside where?" Walsh asked. Maya pulled up the article again, read the venue. "The Madison Hotel downtown. Grand Ballroom. He's holding it there instead of the Pentagon because he wants it to look less official. More personal. Like a wronged man defending his honor. Security will be insane. Security will be expecting an attack, not witnesses walking in through the front door. You're out of your mind. Probably. Maya pulled out of the alley, merged back into traffic. But I've been out of my mind since I drove 8 soldiers through enemy fire 7 years ago. Hasn't stopped me yet. They drove in silence for several minutes, working their way toward downtown. Maya kept checking mirrors, watching for tails, seeing nothing obvious. Either they'd lost their pursuers, or the pursuers were very good. Walsh's phone rang. He stared at the screen, then answered. Kincaid. Maya could hear the agent's voice through the speaker, tight and breathless. Walsh, thank God. Status? Alive. Wounded but stable. I'm with Reeves and 2 other witnesses. We're mobile. Where are you going? Better you don't know. What's your situation? We held them at the tunnel. Lost 3 more agents, but the shooters pulled back. James Hartley is in custody. Our custody. He's beat to hell but alive. The shooters were professionals, Walsh. Former special operations, probably contractors. This wasn't some random hit squad. Walsh glanced at Maya. We know. Taggart's making his move. Monroe is missing. We think she was grabbed during the initial breach. Maya's blood went cold. They took her? We found blood and signs of a struggle in her office. No body. They wanted her alive. Why? Leverage, or information, or both. Kincaid's voice was grim. She had access to all the case files. If they break her, they'll know everything we know. Monroe won't break, Walsh said. Everyone breaks eventually. We need to assume they have full intelligence on our investigation. Maya's mind raced through the implications. Monroe knew about the recording, knew about the other witnesses, knew the entire timeline of evidence they'd assembled. What about Marcus Webb, she asked. Moved to Walter Reed under heavy guard. He's safe for now. And the congressional hearings? Still scheduled. Armed Services Committee wants testimony day after tomorrow. But after today's attack, there's talk of postponing for security reasons. No. Maya's voice was sharp. They postpone and Taggart wins. He gets more time to spin this, more time to eliminate threats. The hearings happen on schedule. You might not survive until the hearings. Then we make sure everyone knows the truth before we die. Silence on the line. Then Kincaid spoke quietly. What are you planning? Can't tell you, but watch the news at noon. Maya. She hung up. Walsh stared at her. You just cut off our only backup. Our backup just lost 3 agents and got one of their investigators kidnapped. They can't help us now. So we're on our own. We've always been on our own? They reached downtown Dalton Ridge 20 minutes later. The Madison Hotel rose 30 stories above the business district, all glass and steel and quiet wealth. News vans already crowded the street outside. Reporters checking equipment, cameramen setting up positions. Security guards in dark suits talking into earpieces. Maya parked 3 blocks away in a public garage. They sat in the SUV, watching the hotel from a distance. We need a plan, Rachel said. The plan is we walk in. Just like that? Just like that. We're not sneaking. We're not hiding. We walk straight through the front door and into that press conference. David shook his head. They'll stop us. Maybe. Or maybe they'll be so focused on external threats that they won't notice 4 people in business casual walking through the lobby. Walsh pulled out his credentials. I can get us past the first checkpoint. After that, we're improvising. Fine with me. Rachel looked down at her clothes, jeans and a sweatshirt, both covered in dust and sweat from the safe house. We look like we just crawled out of a war zone. Because we did. Maya checked her own appearance in the mirror. Same problem. We need to clean up, look normal. They spent 45 minutes in a department store 3 blocks from the hotel. Maya bought a simple black pantsuit. Rachel found a conservative dress. David and Walsh settled for khakis and button-downs. They changed in the store bathrooms, stuffed their old clothes in shopping bags, emerged looking like business professionals instead of refugees. Maya barely recognized herself in the mirror. Hair combed, face washed, clothes pressed. She looked like every other young professional in downtown Dalton Ridge. Invisible again. Perfect. They walked to the Madison Hotel in a loose group, not too close, not obviously together. The security checkpoint at the entrance was exactly what Maya expected. Metal detectors, bag searches, credentials checks. Walsh flashed his badge and ID. The guards waved them through without much scrutiny. Inside, the lobby was organized chaos. More security. More reporters, hotel staff trying to manage the crowd. A printed schedule showed the press conference starting in the grand ballroom on the second floor at noon exactly. They had 15 minutes. Badges, Walsh muttered. We need press badges, or they won't let us in the ballroom. Maya scanned the crowd and spotted a registration table near the elevators. A harried hotel employee was checking credentials and handing out press passes to journalists. The line was long. They didn't have time. Wait here, Maya said. She walked over to a reporter standing alone, a young woman frantically typing on her phone. Press badge hanging from a lanyard around her neck. Excuse me, Maya said. I'm with the Department of Defense press office. There's been a change to the seating arrangement. Can I borrow your badge for just a second to verify the spelling? The reporter barely looked up. Sure, whatever. She handed over the badge. Maya walked away quickly, grabbed Rachel. Give me your hair tie. What? Your hair tie. Now. Rachel pulled it off her wrist. Maya used it to attach the badge to Rachel's jacket. You're press now. Get in that ballroom and find seats as close to the front as possible. What about you? I'll figure something out. Rachel hesitated, then nodded and headed for the ballroom entrance. David and Walsh followed, using Walsh's credentials to talk their way past the security guards. That left Maya standing alone in the lobby. No badge, no credentials, no obvious way inside. She checked her watch. 10 minutes to noon. The ballroom doors would close any second. Once they did, getting inside would be nearly impossible. She needed another approach. Maya studied the layout. The grand ballroom had multiple entrances, main doors from the lobby, side doors from the service corridors, probably a backstage entrance for speakers. The side doors would be locked and monitored. The backstage entrance was her best bet. She found a hotel employee in the hallway, a young man pushing a cart full of linens. Excuse me, I'm with General Taggart's advance team. Can you show me how to access the backstage area? We need to do a final security sweep. The employee looked uncertain. I'm supposed to check with my manager. There's no time. The general arrives in 8 minutes. If we don't finish the sweep, he won't go on stage. Do you want to explain to him why his press conference got delayed? Fear of authority won out. The employee led her down a service corridor, through a storage area, to a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. He swiped a key card. The door clicked open. Through here, it leads right backstage. Thank you. Maya slipped through the door before he could reconsider. The corridor behind the stage was dim and crowded with audio equipment, lighting rigs, and nervous hotel staff making last-minute adjustments. She could hear the crowd beyond the curtain, hundreds of reporters, cameras, the low hum of anticipation. She found a gap between two equipment racks and positioned herself where she could see the stage. A podium stood center stage, flanked by American flags. A single chair sat to the side, presumably for Taggart. 2 minutes to noon. The crowd noise shifted. Someone important had arrived. Maya risked leaning forward slightly and saw him. General William Taggart. He looked exactly like his photographs. Tall, silver-haired, ramrod posture, dress uniform with enough medals to weigh down a smaller man. He moved with absolute confidence, shaking hands with reporters, smiling for cameras, every inch the decorated hero. Maya's hands curled into fists. Taggart took the stage. The crowd quieted. Cameras focused. He stood at the podium and gripped its edges like he owned it. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice deep and commanding. I know there's been a lot of speculation in the media over the past 24 hours. A lot of accusations, a lot of noise. I'm here today to cut through that noise and tell you the truth. He paused for effect. The allegations against me are false. Completely, utterly false. They are the product of a coordinated effort by individuals with personal grievances and political motivations to destroy my reputation and derail my appointment as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Someone in the audience raised a hand. Taggart ignored them. 7 years ago, I was the operational commander responsible for several classified missions in Afghanistan. Operation Iron Shepherd was one of those missions. It was dangerous, complex, and like all military operations, it involved difficult decisions. Lives were on the line, American lives. His voice hardened. During that operation, we faced an ambush. A convoy came under attack. We lost good soldiers that day. But the decisions I made were based on the best intelligence available at the time. We requested air support. We evacuated survivors. We followed protocol. Maya felt rage building in her chest. The so-called recording that surfaced yesterday is a fabrication. Audio experts I've consulted have identified multiple signs of digital manipulation. Timestamps don't match. Voice patterns are inconsistent. This is a hit job, pure and simple. He looked directly at the cameras. The individuals making these accusations, and I won't dignify them by naming them, have long histories of instability. One of them was discharged from the military under questionable circumstances. Another has a documented history of PTSD and disciplinary issues. They are not reliable witnesses. They are troubled people being manipulated by political operatives who want to damage this administration. Maya stepped out from behind the equipment rack. She walked onto the stage. The crowd gasped. Cameras swung toward her. Taggart's face went white. "My name is Maya Elizabeth Reeves," she said, her voice carrying across the ballroom without a microphone. "Former specialist, United States Army, combat medic. I was there during Operation Iron Shepherd, and everything this man just said is a lie." Security guards rushed toward the stage, but the cameras were already rolling. Every major network was broadcasting live. There was no stopping this now. "We called for evacuation 6 times, Maya continued, speaking faster. 6 times General Taggart, Colonel Taggart at the time, denied our requests. He left 13 soldiers to die because he didn't want to risk exposing a classified operation. He valued secrecy over American lives. "Remove her from the stage," Taggart said coldly. Security grabbed her arms. Maya didn't resist, but she kept talking. "I have the original recording, unedited, time-stamped. I've submitted it to the Inspector General. I've submitted it to Congress. And I'm willing to testify under oath about everything I saw that day." The guards dragged her toward the side exit. But Rachel stood up from the audience. "I was there too," Rachel shouted. "Communications specialist. I made those calls. He denied every single one." David stood. "I was wounded in that convoy. I listened to command refuse to help us while I bled out." More people were standing, veterans in the audience, reporters sensing the story exploding in front of them. The entire ballroom erupted into chaos. Maya locked eyes with Taggart across the stage. He stared at her with pure hatred. This wasn't the face of a wronged man. This was the face of someone whose carefully constructed lies were crumbling in real time. "You should have left us alone," Maya said quietly, knowing he could read her lips even if he couldn't hear her over the chaos. "You should have let us stay buried." The security guards pulled her through the exit. She caught one last glimpse of Taggart at the podium, his face twisted with rage, before the door slammed shut. They dragged her down the corridor through the service areas toward a security office. But before they got there, Walsh appeared with actual federal credentials and official paperwork. "Let her go. She's a witness in an active federal investigation. You have no authority to detain her." The security guards hesitated, confused. In that moment of hesitation, Rachel and David appeared with more federal agents. Real ones this time, Kincaid's people, backup that had finally arrived. The hotel security backed off. Kincaid herself emerged from the crowd, her face grim but determined. "We need to move. Now. Half the city just watched that happen. It's going to get very complicated very fast." They exited through the kitchen, out into an alley where armored vehicles waited. Real protection this time. Real security. They climbed inside and the convoy pulled away just as police sirens began converging on the Madison Hotel. Maya sat in the back of the vehicle, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She'd just confronted General Taggart on live television, accused him directly, put her face and name to everything. There was no going back now. Walsh was on his phone, monitoring news feeds. "It's everywhere. Every network is replaying your interruption. Social media is exploding. Hashtag Iron Shepherd is trending #1. "What's Taggart saying?" "Nothing yet. He left the stage right after you were removed. His PR team is scrambling." Kincaid turned around from the front seat. "You realize what you just did? I stopped him from controlling the narrative. You also painted a target on your back the size of Texas. I already had one. Now at least everyone's watching." Rachel reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. "That took guts." "That took stupidity," David muttered. "Brave stupidity, but still." They drove in silence for several minutes. Maya watched the city pass by outside the tinted windows. Normal people going about normal lives, completely unaware of the war happening around them. Walsh's phone rang. He listened for a long moment, his expression darkening. Then he hung up and turned to Maya. That was the Inspector General's office. They want you to testify tomorrow, not day after tomorrow. Tomorrow. They've moved the congressional hearing up. Armed Services Committee, 9 a.m. Why the change? Because after what just happened, they want answers before this turns into a full-blown national crisis. Every member of Congress is getting calls. Veterans groups are demanding investigations. The pressure is enormous. Kincaid nodded grimly. Taggart's confirmation hearing was supposed to be in 3 days. Now there's no way it happens. His career is over. Unless he destroys us first, David said. He can't. Not anymore. Too many people are watching. But Maya wasn't so sure. Cornered animals were the most dangerous, and they just cornered one of the most powerful men in the military. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. She almost didn't look, but some instinct made her check. A photograph. Investigator Monroe. Bound to a chair, blood on her face, alive but hurt. Below the image, a message. You have 12 hours to recant your testimony. Tell the committee you lied about the recording. Say you fabricated everything, or Monroe dies and we release photos that destroy what's left of your credibility. Maya stared at the screen. Her hand started shaking. What is it? Kincaid asked. Maya turned the phone around. The entire vehicle went silent. They have her, Rachel whispered, and they're going to kill her. Walsh grabbed the phone, started tracing the message. We can find her. If they're making contact, they're giving us breadcrumbs. They know that, Maya said. They don't care. This isn't about hiding anymore. This is about leverage. So what do we do? Maya looked at each of them. Rachel, David, Walsh, Kincaid. The survivors. The witnesses. The people who decided to stop running and start fighting. We don't recant, she said quietly. We testify. We tell the truth. And we trust that Monroe is strong enough to hold on until we finish this. That's not a plan, David said. That's a prayer. It's all we have. Kincaid's radio crackled. A voice came through, urgent and breathless. All units be advised, explosion reported at Carrington Memorial Hospital, ICU wing, multiple casualties. Maya's blood turned to ice. The radio continued. Reports of a secondary device, bomb squad en route, evacuations in progress. Marcus, Rachel said. They'd moved him to Walter Reed. But the attack wasn't on Marcus. It was on everyone Maya had left behind. Dr. Cross, Jenna, Patricia, all the nurses and doctors who'd worked with her, who'd seen her confront that construction foreman, who could corroborate parts of her story. Taggart wasn't just trying to silence the witnesses anymore. He was burning everything to the ground. The armored vehicle changed direction immediately, tires squealing as the driver executed a hard U-turn in the middle of traffic. Horns blared. Kincaid was already on her radio coordinating with emergency services, her voice clipped and efficient despite the chaos. Maya pressed her face against the window, watching the city blur past. Carrington Memorial. The place she'd spent 11 months building a quiet life. The ICU where she'd saved Marcus Webb. The hallways where Dr. Cross had dismissed her and nurses had ignored her. Now it was burning. How many casualties? Walsh asked into his phone. Early reports say at least 6 dead, 20 injured. The explosion was centered on the 4th floor ICU. Looks like a planted device, not a suicide bomber. Rachel made a strangled sound. The 4th floor, that's where we worked. They're targeting everyone connected to you, Kincaid said, meeting Maya's eyes in the rearview mirror. Everyone who could back up your story. How did they even get a bomb into a hospital? Same way they got someone into Marcus's room the first time. They have people inside, maybe staff, maybe visitors, maybe contractors. Doesn't matter, they had access. David was staring at his hands. This is our fault. If we just stayed quiet. Don't. Maya's voice came out sharp. Don't you dare finish that sentence. We didn't plant that bomb. We didn't kill those people. Taggart did. And if we stay quiet now, he wins. People are dying, huh? People have been dying. 13 soldiers 7 years ago. Who knows how many others since then that we don't know about? This ends when we end it. They arrived at Carrington Memorial 15 minutes later. The entire block was cordoned off with police tape. Fire trucks blocked the street, hoses snaking across pavement. Ambulances lined up in a grim procession. And above it all, smoke poured from the 4th floor windows. Maya tried to get out of the vehicle, but Kincaid grabbed her arm. You can't go in there. I'm a nurse. They need help. You're a target. You show your face. and whoever planted that bomb gets confirmation you're here. Then they set off another one. There might be survivors. Let the professionals handle it. Maya jerked her arm free and opened the door anyway. Kincaid swore and followed her out, along with two other agents who formed a loose protective circle. They pushed through the crowd of reporters and onlookers toward the hospital entrance. A paramedic Maya recognized from her shifts was loading a patient into an ambulance. His face was streaked with soot, his hands shaking. He saw her and froze. "Reeves, what the hell are you doing here?" "What do you need?" "We need—" He stopped, stared at her. "Everyone's saying this is about you, that you're involved in some federal investigation and now people are getting killed. That's not—" "Dr. Cross is dead." The words hit like a physical blow. Maya actually staggered backward. "What?" "He was in the ICU when it happened. Right at the nurse's station. The explosion killed him instantly." Rachel appeared beside Maya, her face white. "Jenna?" "Critical condition. They airlifted her to County General." "Patricia Hale?" "Don't know. Still searching the rubble." Maya forced herself to breathe. "Dr. Cross." The man who'd dismissed her, who'd shut her down, who'd never learned her name properly. Dead because someone wanted to erase everyone who'd seen her save Marcus Webb. "How many in the ICU?" she asked quietly. "When it happened?" 14 patients, 6 staff members. We've pulled out 8 patients alive so far, still working on the rest. "I can help." No." The paramedic's voice hardened. "You need to leave. Right now. People are scared. They're saying you brought this here, that federal agents and bombs and dead doctors are all because of you." I don't care. Just go." He turned his back and returned to his ambulance. Other emergency workers nearby were staring at Maya with expressions ranging from suspicion to outright hostility. A police officer approached, hand resting on his weapon. Kincaid stepped between them. "Federal agent, she's under our protection. She needs to leave this scene." "We're going." They retreated to the armored vehicle. Maya climbed inside, feeling numb. Through the window, she watched firefighters spray water on the 4th floor, the ICU where she'd worked, the patients she'd cared for, the coworkers who'd barely known she existed, all of it destroyed because she'd decided to speak up. Walsh was on his phone again, face grim. That was the Inspector General's office. The congressional hearing is still on for tomorrow morning, but there's been a development. What kind of development? Taggart's lawyers just filed a motion claiming you're mentally unstable and your testimony should be excluded. They're using the hospital bombing as evidence that you're dangerous, that you've attracted violence wherever you go, that you're not a credible witness. That's insane. That's strategy. They're flipping the narrative, making you the problem instead of Taggart. Rachel slammed her hand against the seat. How can they do that? He's the one who ordered the hit. Prove it. Show me evidence linking Taggart directly to the bombing or the safe house attack or any of it. Because his lawyers will argue that unstable veterans with PTSD have attracted attention from extremist groups who want to use them for political purposes. They'll say Taggart is the victim of a conspiracy, not the architect of one. David leaned forward. What about Monroe? They sent us proof they have her. Proof they have someone who looks like her in a dark photograph. Defense will argue it's staged, that we're manufacturing evidence. Maya felt the walls closing in again. Every move they made, Taggart countered. Every piece of evidence they presented, his lawyers twisted. He'd spent 7 years building defenses against this exact scenario. The recording, she said. They can't dismiss that. They already are. Audio experts Taggart hired claim it's been edited, spliced together from different conversations. They're saying you had 7 years to fabricate it. That's a lie. Of course it's a lie. But it's a lie told by experts with credentials and courtroom experience. You're one woman with a history of defying orders. Who do you think a jury believes? Silence filled the vehicle. Finally, Kincaid spoke. We're not going to a jury. We're going to Congress. Tomorrow morning. And congressional hearings have different rules than criminal trials. They want the truth, whatever that looks like. They want good television, Walsh corrected. They want ratings and sound bites and political ammunition. The truth is secondary. Then we make the truth too big to ignore. How? Maya thought about the photograph of Monroe, about the explosion at Carrington Memorial, about the safe house attack and the threats and the systematic elimination of everyone who could support her story. "They're making mistakes," she said slowly. "Taggart's people. They're getting sloppy." "Sloppy how?" "The hospital bomb was overkill, too visible, too public. If they'd just wanted to silence potential witnesses, they could have done it quietly. Car accidents, home invasions, things that look random." Walsh nodded. "But they went loud, made a statement. Because they're panicking. Taggart is panicking. He thought he could control this, threaten us into silence, discredit the recording, spin the narrative. But we showed up at his press conference. We put our faces on national television. Now he's cornered, and cornered people make desperate moves. Like bombing hospitals. Like leaving evidence behind." Kincaid caught on immediately. "The bomb. If it was planted, there's forensics, materials, maybe surveillance footage of whoever placed it. And the safe house attack. 6 shooters with military weapons. Someone hired them. Someone paid them. Follow the money, and you find who gave the orders. That takes time. We have 18 hours until you testify. Then we work fast." Kincaid made a series of rapid phone calls. Within 20 minutes, they had updates from multiple sources. The FBI was already processing the bomb scene at Carrington Memorial. A TF was tracing explosive materials. The safe house where they'd been attacked was being swept for evidence. But the most interesting update came from a different source. Treasury Department flagged unusual transactions, Kincaid reported. Someone moved $2 million through offshore accounts in the last 72 hours. The money went to a private military contractor based in Virginia. Same contractor that employed 3 of the shooters from this morning. We ID'd them from fingerprints at the scene. Can we trace who paid them? Treasury is working on it. But these kinds of transactions are designed to hide the source. Shell companies, offshore banks, cryptocurrency conversions. It'll take weeks to unravel. We don't have weeks. Walsh looked up from his laptop. We might not need weeks. Look at this. He turned the screen around. It showed a news article posted 30 minutes ago. Colonel Benjamin Harris found dead in apparent suicide. Maya read the article twice. Colonel Harris, the commanding officer during Operation Iron Shepherd. The man who'd denied their evacuation requests. One of the people who'd buried the truth alongside Taggart. Suicide? Rachel's voice was skeptical. Official report says he shot himself in his home office, left a note. What did the note say? That's classified for now, but sources say it contained references to Iron Shepherd and expressions of guilt. David whistled softly. Convenient. Too convenient, Maya agreed. Harris was going to be called to testify. Now he's dead before he can implicate anyone else. You think Taggart had him killed? I think Harris was a loose end. He knew what really happened. He made the call to deny evacuation. If he testified, he could corroborate our story. Dead men can't testify. Walsh was typing frantically. I'm reaching out to the investigator on Harris's death. If it wasn't suicide, if there's any evidence of foul play, it changes everything. They drove to a secure FBI facility on the outskirts of Dalton Ridge. Not a safe house this time. An actual fortified building with armed guards and multiple layers of security. They'd learned their lesson about vulnerable locations. Inside, they gathered in a conference room identical to the one from yesterday. Same white walls, same fluorescent lights, same sense of being trapped in a bureaucratic nightmare while people died around them. But this time they weren't just reacting, they were building a case. Kincaid spread documents across the table. Here's what we have. The recording from Operation Iron Shepherd, verified as authentic by 3 independent audio forensics labs. Testimony from 4 survivors who were there. Medical records showing the wounds you treated that day, Maya, which match your account. And now Harris's death, which looks increasingly suspicious the more we dig. What about Monroe? Rachel asked. Still missing, but every law enforcement agency in the country is looking for her. If she's alive, we'll find her. And if she's not? Nobody answered that question. Walsh's phone buzzed. He read the message and his eyes widened. The investigator on Harris's death just sent preliminary findings. There's a problem with the suicide narrative. What problem? Harris was shot in the right temple, but he was left-handed. Medical records confirm it. Left-handed people almost never shoot themselves in the right temple. It's anatomically awkward. Maya felt a surge of grim satisfaction. So it was murder. Strong possibility. They're doing a full forensic workup now. But if we're right, if someone killed Harris to keep him quiet, that's conspiracy. That's obstruction of justice. That's evidence of a cover-up. Can we prove Taggart ordered it? Not directly, but it establishes a pattern. Everyone connected to Iron Shepherd is either dead, threatened, or under attack. That's not coincidence. Kincaid's radio crackled. Agent Kincaid, we have a situation. Senator Margaret Oakes is here. She wants to speak with Maya Reeves immediately. Everyone in the room turned to stare at the radio. Senator Oakes? Kincaid repeated. As in the chair of the Armed Services Committee? The same. What does she want? She says it's urgent, related to tomorrow's hearing. Maya and Kincaid exchanged glances. Then Maya stood. I'll talk to her. They escorted her to a different room, smaller, more private. Senator Margaret Oakes stood by the window, a woman in her mid-60s with steel gray hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention without saying a word. She'd been in Congress for 20 years, former federal prosecutor, known for not tolerating bullshit from anyone. Ms. Reeves, the senator said without preamble, you've created quite a mess. I didn't create anything. I just stopped hiding from it. Fair enough. Oakes sat down and gestured for Maya to do the same. I watched your performance at the Madison Hotel. Bold, reckless, effective. You got the whole country's attention. That was the point. And now you've got mine, which is why I'm here. Tomorrow's hearing is going to be brutal. Taggart's lawyers are going to tear you apart. They'll question your service record, your mental state, your motives. They'll make you look like a vindictive veteran with a grudge. Let them try. I'm sure you believe that, but I've been doing this for 2 decades. I've seen strong witnesses crumble under cross-examination. And you're walking into a political firestorm where half the committee wants to protect Taggart because he's connected to their party, and the other half wants to destroy him for the same reason. The truth becomes secondary to the spectacle. Maya kept her voice level. Then what do you suggest? I suggest you understand what you're up against. Taggart has allies at the highest levels, Pentagon brass, White House connections, senators who owe him favors. If you testify tomorrow and it's just your word against his, there's a real chance the committee splits along party lines and nothing changes. He gets his confirmation. You get labeled a troublemaker. Operation Iron Shepherd stays buried. So I should stay quiet? I didn't say that. Oakes leaned forward. I'm saying you need more than testimony. You need something that can't be spun or dismissed or politicized. You need evidence so overwhelming that even Taggart's allies can't defend him. We have the recording, which his experts claim is fake. Harris's death is being investigated, but nothing concrete yet. And even if it's proven to be murder, connecting it to Taggart will take months of investigation. Maya felt frustration building. Then what do you want from me? I want you to give me a reason to go to war. Because that's what this is. If I push hard on Taggart tomorrow, if I use my position to expose him, I'm making enemies, powerful enemies. I need to know it's worth it. 13 soldiers died. I know. I've read the reports. I've listened to the recording. I believe you. But belief isn't enough. I need ammunition. Maya stared at her. You want me to find proof in the next 18 hours? I want you to give me something I can use to destroy him in public. Because private investigations take time. Congressional hearings happen fast. Tomorrow morning, in front of cameras, I need you to make Taggart crack. How? Oakes stood and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned back. You spent 6 years as a combat medic. You know how to find weak points. Find his. Then she was gone. Maya returned to the conference room where the others waited. Senator Oakes wants us to make Taggart confess during the hearing. Walsh laughed bitterly. That's not how it works. He'll have lawyers present. He'll plead the fifth if things get uncomfortable. There's no dramatic confession coming. Then we force him into a corner where the Fifth Amendment looks like guilt. Again, how? Maya pulled out her phone and opened the recording one more time. She'd listened to it hundreds of times over the years. 42 minutes of radio communications, 6 requests for evacuation, 6 denials. But what if she'd been listening for the wrong thing? Play it from the beginning, she told Walsh. Put it through audio analysis software. I want to hear everything, background noise, other voices, anything that wasn't part of the main conversation. Walsh uploaded the file and ran it through enhanced audio filters. They listened in silence as the recording played. Maya's younger voice requesting evacuation, Colonel Harris refusing, the crackle of radio static, the distant sounds of gunfire. But 15 minutes in, something new emerged from the background noise. Another voice, faint but distinct, speaking to Harris between radio transmissions. Walsh isolated it, amplified it. A second voice said, "Can't send birds in until we recover the package. Tell them to hold position." "Who is that?" Rachel asked. Maya's blood ran cold. She recognized that voice. Lower pitched than she remembered from 7 years ago, but unmistakable. "That's Taggart." Walsh replayed the isolated audio. "Until we recover the package." "Package," David repeated. "What package?" Maya's mind raced back through her memories of that day. The convoy had been transporting supplies, standard military materials. Nothing unusual, or so they'd been told. "They lied about the mission," she said slowly. "We weren't just moving supplies, we were transporting something classified, something they couldn't risk being exposed. That's why they wouldn't send helicopters. Not because it was too dangerous, because they couldn't let anyone see what we were carrying." Kincaid grabbed her radio. "Get me the mission logs from Operation Iron Shepherd. Everything. I don't care if it's classified. I want manifests, orders, anything showing what that convoy was transporting. Those files are sealed. Then unseal them. We have 18 hours. Walsh was already typing, pulling up military databases, searching through classified archives. "This is going to take authorization we don't have." "Then get someone who does." An hour passed. Then 2. The sun set outside. Maya paced the conference room, unable to sit still. Somewhere out there, Monroe was still missing. Marcus Webb was recovering under armed guard. James Hartley was being debriefed about the safe house attack. And tomorrow morning, Maya would sit in front of Congress and tell her story to the world. But stories weren't enough anymore. Senator Oakes was right. They needed proof. Walsh's computer chimed. "Got something. Military inventory records from the date of Operation Iron Shepherd. Convoy manifests." Everyone crowded around the laptop. The manifest listed standard supplies, ammunition, medical equipment, food rations. Nothing unusual. But at the bottom, a single line marked classified cargo. Level 5, clearance required. Level 5, Kincaid breathed. That's above top secret. That's compartmentalized information on a need-to-know basis. "Can you find out what it was?" "Not without clearance I don't have, but I know someone who might." She made a call, spoke in low, urgent tones. Hung up. "Defense Intelligence Agency. They're checking their archives. If we're lucky, someone documented what that cargo was." 20 minutes later, Kincaid's phone rang. She answered, listened, went pale. "Are you absolutely certain?" A pause. "Send me everything you have." She hung up and looked at Maya. The classified cargo was weapons, not American weapons. Foreign weapons captured from a black market dealer. The kind of weapons that technically shouldn't exist because they were part of an arms control treaty the U.S. signed. They were smuggling illegal weapons? They were trying to smuggle them back for analysis without officially acknowledging they existed. If that convoy had been hit and the weapons exposed, it would have caused an international incident, proof that someone violated arms treaties, potential war crimes implications. Maya felt everything clicking into place. So they left us to die to protect the cargo, and protect themselves. Because whoever authorized that mission violated federal law and international treaties. If it came out, careers would end. People would go to prison. Taggart authorized it. Taggart was the operational commander. He would have needed approval from above, but he gave the orders. He made the call to prioritize recovering those weapons over evacuating the convoy. Walsh was already pulling up more files. If we can prove Taggart knew about the illegal weapons and still denied evacuation, that's criminal negligence at minimum, possibly treason, depending on how the treaties were violated. Can we prove it before tomorrow morning? I'm working on it. The door burst open. Another agent rushed in, breathless. "We found Monroe!" Everyone jumped to their feet. "Where?" "Abandoned warehouse in the industrial district. Anonymous tip called it in. She's alive. Injured but alive. Paramedics are with her now." "Was anyone else there?" "No. Whoever held her cleared out before we arrived. But Monroe's conscious. She's talking. and she says she has information about who grabbed her. They arrived at the warehouse 30 minutes later. Ambulances were already loading Monroe onto a stretcher. Her face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, but she was alert and furious. "Reeves," she called out when she saw Maya. They wanted to know about the recording, kept asking where the original file was stored, how many copies existed. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing, because I didn't know." Monroe grimaced as the paramedics lifted her stretcher. "But I saw faces. 3 men. 2 were contractors. Tattoos, military bearing, no identifying marks. But the third one was different, older, wearing a suit. He asked the questions. The contractors just followed orders." "Did you recognize him?" "No, but he had a pin on his lapel, military insignia, eagle and stars, general's rank." Kincaid's expression hardened. "Can you describe him?" Monroe did. And as she spoke, Maya felt ice spreading through her veins. The description matched someone they'd seen before. Not Taggart, someone else. Someone who'd been in the background of Taggart's press conference, standing near the exit, watching. Walsh pulled up photographs from the Madison Hotel, scanned through until he found the right frame. "This man?" Monroe stared at the photo. "That's him." The photo showed a silver-haired man in dress uniform, General Richard Castellano, Deputy Chief of Staff for the Army, Taggart's direct superior. "Castellano was there during Iron Shepherd," Maya said. "He would have been Colonel Castellano then. He would have known about the illegal weapons. He would have authorized the mission," Kincaid added. "Taggart takes orders, but Castellano gives them." Walsh looked up from his laptop. "If Castellano ordered the kidnapping and interrogation of a federal investigator, that's a federal crime. We can arrest him, right now." "On what evidence? Monroe's testimony?" "That's enough for a warrant." Kincaid made the call. Within minutes, a federal arrest warrant was issued for General Richard Castellano. U.S. Marshals were dispatched to his residence. They found him gone. Empty house. No sign of where he'd gone, but they did find his personal computer, and on that computer partially deleted emails that forensics quickly recovered. Walsh read them aloud, his voice shaking slightly. Email from Castellano to an unknown recipient dated 3 days ago. Quote, "The Reeves situation needs permanent resolution. I don't care how it's done. Eliminate the witnesses and destroy all evidence linking back to Iron Shepherd. This cannot reach Congress." "That's conspiracy to commit murder," Kincaid said. "That's obstruction of justice. That's everything we need." "Except Castellano himself," Maya pointed out. "He's running. He can't run far. Every law enforcement agency in the country is looking for him now." But Maya wasn't so sure. Men like Castellano didn't run without plans. He'd known this day might come. He'd have contingencies, escape routes, resources. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. She stared at it, not wanting to look. But she had to. The message was brief. "Tomorrow at the hearing, 9 a.m. If you testify, Castellano has orders to detonate a device in the congressional chamber. He has nothing left to lose. Neither do I. WT William Taggart." Maya showed the message to Kincaid. "It's a bluff," Kincaid said immediately. "They're trying to scare you into not testifying." "What if it's not?" "Then we evacuate Congress, cancel the hearing, but we don't let them win through terrorism. If we cancel, they win anyway. The story dies. The investigation stalls, Taggart walks." Walsh spoke up quietly. "If there's even a chance they planted a bomb in Congress, then we find it," Maya interrupted. "We have 12 hours. We sweep the entire building, we find the device if it exists, and we proceed with the hearing." "That's insane. That's the only way this ends." Maya looked around at all of them. Kincaid, Walsh, Rachel, David, all the agents and investigators who'd been working this case. "They want us scared. They want us running, but we're not running anymore. Tomorrow morning, we walk into that chamber, we tell the truth, and we watch them burn." Silence. Then Kincaid nodded. "I'll coordinate with Capitol Police. We'll sweep the building top to bottom. Do it quietly. If Castellano knows we're looking, he might detonate early." The next 12 hours were the longest of Maya's life. She tried to sleep but couldn't, tried to eat but her stomach rejected everything. She sat in the secure facility watching news coverage of the unfolding scandal. Carrington Memorial Hospital, 6 dead, 17 injured. Dr. Cross's name mentioned prominently. The safe house attack, 4 federal agents killed. James Hartley recovering from injuries. Colonel Harris's suspicious death. Investigators now calling it a homicide. General Castellano wanted for questioning in connection with kidnapping and conspiracy. And through it all, General William Taggart maintained his innocence, claimed he was the victim of a political witch hunt, said he looked forward to clearing his name before Congress. At 3 a.m., Kincaid returned from Capitol Hill. We swept the congressional chamber, no explosives found, no suspicious devices. It was a bluff. Maya felt some tension release. You're sure? We had bomb-sniffing dogs, portable X-ray equipment, and EOD teams go through every inch. It's clean. So we proceed. At 7 a.m., they loaded into armored vehicles for the drive to Capitol Hill. Maya wore a simple dark suit, no makeup, hair pulled back. She wanted to look like exactly what she was, a former combat medic who'd seen too much and decided to stop running. The Capitol building rose before them, white and imposing against the morning sky. News crews lined the streets. Protesters gathered with signs supporting both Taggart and his accusers. Police barricades held back the crowds. They entered through a secure entrance, escorted by Capitol Police and federal agents. The halls were marble in history, echoing with footsteps. Maya had never been here before, had never imagined she'd be here under these circumstances. The Armed Services Committee hearing room was larger than she'd expected, rising tiers of seats for the senators. A long table for witnesses, cameras positioned to capture every angle, the gallery packed with reporters and spectators. Maya took her seat at the witness table. Rachel and David sat beside her. Behind them, other survivors of Operation Iron Shepherd, who'd flown in overnight to testify. Senator Oaks called the hearing to order at exactly 9 a.m. This committee is gathered today to investigate allegations of criminal negligence and conspiracy related to a classified military operation 7 years ago. We will hear testimony from multiple witnesses, review evidence, and determine whether these allegations warrant further investigation and potential criminal charges. She looked directly at Maya. Ms. Reeves, you requested to testify first. The floor is yours. Maya stood, placed her hand on the Bible for the oath, swore to tell the truth. Then she began to speak. She told them everything. The convoy, the ambush, the request for evacuation, the denials from command, the burning vehicles and the screaming soldiers, and the choice she'd made to disobey orders and drive everyone out herself. She told them about the recording, the classified cargo, the cover-up that followed. She spoke for 30 minutes without notes, without hesitation. Just the truth, laid bare for the entire country to witness. When she finished, the room was completely silent. Then Senator Oaks spoke. General Taggart, you've been listening to this testimony. Do you wish to respond? Taggart sat at a separate table with 3 lawyers. He looked calm, composed, every inch the decorated general. Senator, this is a fiction, a carefully constructed lie designed to... Did you deny requests for evacuation during Operation Iron Shepherd? The situation was complex. We had to weigh multiple factors. Yes or no, General? Taggart's jaw tightened. Operational security required. Yes or no? A long pause. Then, yes, but... And were you aware the convoy was transporting illegal weapons in violation of international treaties? Taggart's lawyers immediately objected. That information is classified. The classification has been temporarily lifted for the purpose of this hearing, Oaks said coldly. General, answer the question. Taggart's mask finally cracked. Just a little. Just enough. I was following orders. Whose orders? My superiors. Name them. Colonel Castellano at the time, now General Castellano. And where is General Castellano now? I don't know. You don't know because he's currently fleeing federal authorities after being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, and kidnapping a federal investigator. Correct? The room erupted, reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing, senators demanding order. Maya watched Taggart's face crumble in real time. Everything he'd built, everything he'd protected, all of it collapsing live on television. Senator Oaks let the chaos continue for 30 seconds. Then she banged her gavel. General Taggart, Did you or General Castellano order attacks on federal witnesses in the past 72 hours? I invoke my right against self-incrimination. Did you authorize the bombing of Carrington Memorial Hospital that killed 6 people? Fifth Amendment. Did you participate in the cover-up of Operation Iron Shepherd for 7 years? Fifth Amendment. Oakes leaned back in her chair. Let the record show that General William Taggart has invoked his Fifth Amendment rights rather than answer questions about his involvement in these crimes. This committee will reconvene tomorrow to hear additional testimony. In the meantime, I am referring this matter to the Department of Justice for immediate criminal investigation. General Taggart, consider yourself under federal investigation. Your confirmation as chairman of the Joint Chiefs is officially withdrawn. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down, and just like that, it was over. Maya stood on shaking legs as the gallery exploded into noise. Reporters rushing for exits, senators conferring in urgent whispers, Taggart sitting frozen at his table, his lawyers scrambling. Rachel grabbed Maya's hand. "We did it." "Not yet," Maya said. "Castellano is still out there." But even as she spoke, Kincaid appeared in the gallery entrance, phone to her ear. She caught Maya's eye and nodded once. They had him. U.S. Marshals had found Castellano at a private airfield trying to board a plane to a country without extradition. He was in custody, arrested, finished. Maya felt something break loose in her chest. 7 years of carrying this weight. 7 years of silence and fear and wondering if she'd made the right choice. Now she knew. The truth had won. Not easily, not cleanly, but it had won. Outside the Capitol building, news crews surrounded them. Cameras and microphones thrust forward. Reporters shouting questions. "Ms. Reeves, how do you feel? What message do you have for other veterans? Will you return to nursing?" Maya raised her hand. The crowd quieted slightly. "I want to say something about Dr. Nathan Cross. He died in the bombing at Carrington Memorial. He wasn't perfect. He dismissed me when I tried to warn him about a patient. He didn't always listen. But he taught me something important, that speaking up matters even when people don't want to hear it, especially when they don't want to hear it." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "For 7 years I stayed quiet because powerful people told me to. I thought staying quiet would keep people safe. I was wrong. Silence never protects anyone. It only protects the people who benefit from the silence." More questions, but Maya was done answering them. She walked away from the cameras, flanked by Kincaid and the other agents. They loaded into vehicles and drove back to the secure facility, the place that had become a temporary home while the world turned upside down. Inside, Walsh met them with updates. Taggart's lawyers are already negotiating a plea deal. Castellano is refusing to talk, but we have enough evidence to prosecute without his cooperation. The Pentagon has opened formal investigations into everyone involved in Iron Shepherd. It's going to take months to sort out, but it's happening, Maya finished. It's happening. That night, Maya stood alone in the room they'd given her. Small bed, single window. Nothing personal. Nothing that marked it as hers. Just like her apartment had been. Just like every place she'd lived since leaving the military. Always temporary, always ready to run. But maybe she was done running now. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the number was local. Familiar. "Hello? Nurse Reeves?" A woman's voice, hesitant. "This is Jenna, from the ICU." Maya's breath caught. "Jenna, I heard you were injured. I'm okay. Broken arm and some cuts, but I'll live." A pause. "I just wanted to say, I saw what you did today, on the news, the hearing, and I wanted to say I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not listening, for thinking you were just, I don't know, quiet, standoffish. I didn't realize what you were carrying. You had no way to know. Still, you saved Marcus Webb when everyone else missed the signs. You tried to save people at the hearing today. You've been saving people your whole career and nobody saw it." Jenna's voice broke slightly. "Dr. Cross saw it at the end, before he died. He told me he'd been wrong about you, that you were the best nurse in that ICU and he'd been too stupid to notice." Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. "He said that?" His last words before the explosion. That nurse was right. Maya was right. I should have listened. Maya couldn't speak. "Anyway," Jenna continued, "I just thought you should know. And when you're ready to come back, if you want to come back, you have a job. Patricia Hale survived the blast. She's already talking about rebuilding the ICU. She specifically mentioned wanting you back. I don't know if I can. I understand, but the offer's there. We need people like you, people who see what others miss. They talked for a few more minutes, then said goodbye. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, phone still in her hand, and let herself cry. Not for the last 7 years. Not for the soldiers she couldn't save, or the trauma she'd carried, or the quiet life she'd built and lost. She cried because someone had finally seen her. Someone had finally listened. And in the end, that had been enough to change everything. The sentencing hearing took place 6 weeks later in federal court. Maya sat in the gallery with Rachel, David, and James, watching as General William Taggart stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit. No uniform, no medals. Just another defendant waiting to hear his fate. The prosecution had assembled a devastating case. The recording, the illegal weapons transport, Monroe's testimony about her kidnapping, the emails from Castellano's computer, financial records showing payments to the contractors who'd attacked the safe house, forensic evidence linking Taggart to Colonel Harris's murder. Taggart had eventually taken a plea deal to avoid trial, pleaded guilty to conspiracy, obstruction of justice, accessory to murder. His lawyers argued for leniency based on his years of service. The judge wasn't interested in leniency. "General Taggart," she said, her voice cutting through the courtroom, "you were entrusted with the lives of American soldiers. You were given authority and responsibility. And when faced with a choice between protecting those soldiers or protecting your career, you chose yourself. You let 13 people die. Then you spent 7 years destroying anyone who tried to tell the truth about it. You ordered attacks on federal witnesses. You conspired to murder a fellow officer. You betrayed every oath you ever took." Taggart stood rigid, staring straight ahead. "I sentence you to 30 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. You are dishonorably discharged from the United States military. All pensions and benefits are revoked. All honors and commendations are stripped. You will spend the rest of your life remembering the people you sacrificed for your ambition." The gavel came down. Taggart was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look back, didn't acknowledge the gallery, just disappeared through a side door like he'd never existed. Maya felt Rachel squeeze her hand. "It's really over," Rachel whispered. Not quite. General Castellano's trial was scheduled for 3 months later. But unlike Taggart, Castellano refused to negotiate. He maintained his innocence, claimed everything had been authorized at the highest levels, said he'd been following orders from officials whose names remained classified. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Maya testified again. So did Monroe, still recovering from her injuries but determined to put her kidnapper away. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Castellano received 45 years. No parole. He was 73 years old. He'd die in prison. When the verdict was read, Maya felt something she hadn't expected. Not satisfaction, not triumph, just exhaustion and a bone-deep sadness for how much had been destroyed to protect men who'd never deserved protection in the first place. But between the trials, life kept moving forward. Marcus Webb recovered from his injuries and returned to work. He showed up at the secure facility one afternoon to thank Maya in person, bringing flowers and tears and a fierce hug that made her ribs ache. "You saved me twice," he said. "Once 7 years ago and once in that hospital. I won't forget." "Neither will I." James Hartley started a foundation for veterans dealing with PTSD and survivor's guilt. He asked Maya to serve on the board. She agreed. David Ortega wrote a book about Operation Iron Shepherd. It became a bestseller. He donated most of the proceeds to families of the soldiers who died in the original ambush. Rachel Kim went back to school, got a degree in social work, and started counseling veterans transitioning to civilian life. And Maya didn't know what she wanted to do. She couldn't go back to Carrington Memorial. The ICU had reopened, but it would never be the same. Too many ghosts in those hallways. Too many memories of Dr. Cross and the explosion and the patients she couldn't save. Patricia Hale called every week offering her job back. Maya kept saying she'd think about it. "You can't hide forever," Kincaid told her one afternoon over coffee. They'd become something like friends during the investigation. Or maybe just two people who'd survived the same war. "I'm not hiding. You're living in a temporary apartment with no furniture. You haven't unpacked. Your lease is month to month. That's hiding. Maya stirred her coffee without drinking it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. For 7 years I was running, then for 2 months I was fighting. Now it's over and I feel empty. That's normal. You spent your entire adult life in crisis mode, military, then the cover-up, then the investigation. You've never just lived without something chasing you. So what do I do? Kincaid smiled slightly. You figure out who Maya Reeves is when she's not Desert Angel. 3 months after Taggart's sentencing, Maya received a call from the Department of Defense. They wanted to honor the soldiers who died during Operation Iron Shepherd with a formal ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. They wanted Maya to speak. She almost said no. She hated public speaking, hated being the center of attention, hated the way people looked at her now, like she was some kind of hero instead of just a person who'd done what needed doing. But Rachel convinced her. Those families deserve to hear from someone who was there, someone who tried to save them. So Maya agreed. The ceremony was scheduled for a clear October morning. 13 headstones, each one representing a soldier who died 7 years ago. Families gathered around them, parents, spouses, children who'd grown up without knowing their loved ones. Maya stood at the podium in front of hundreds of people, military officials, and press and veterans who'd traveled from across the country. She wore her old dress uniform, the one she'd kept in storage. It didn't fit quite right anymore, but it felt appropriate. She didn't use notes, just spoke from memory. I didn't know all 13 of these soldiers well, she began. I treated them in combat. I tried to save them. But in those final hours, I learned who they were. The staff sergeant who kept joking even while bleeding out because he didn't want anyone else to panic. The private who gave me his last water bottle because he thought I needed it more. The medic who died helping me triage others instead of treating his own wounds. Her voice caught. She forced herself to continue. They died because command decided their lives were worth less than protecting a secret. They died because powerful men valued their careers more than human beings. And for 7 years, those deaths were classified, swept under bureaucracy and lies. Their families were told it was just war, just bad luck, just the cost of service. She looked at the families in the front rows, mothers crying silently, fathers with jaw muscles working, children clutching folded flags. But it wasn't just war, it was betrayal, and those soldiers deserved better. They deserved commanders who valued them. They deserved a system that protected them. They deserved to be remembered for who they were, not buried to hide someone else's mistakes. She stepped back from the podium. A military honor guard fired a salute. The mournful notes of taps echoed across the cemetery. And as the ceremony ended, families came up to Maya one by one, thanking her, holding her hands, crying on her shoulder, telling her stories about sons and daughters and husbands and wives she'd tried desperately to save. One mother, a small woman in her 70s, grabbed Maya's face between both hands. "My son wrote me letters," she said, her voice shaking. In his last letter, he mentioned a medic who wouldn't give up, who kept fighting even when everyone else wanted to retreat. He said if anything happened to him, I should find Desert Angel and thank her for trying. Maya couldn't speak. "So thank you," the mother whispered. "Thank you for not leaving him alone. Thank you for caring when his commanders didn't. Thank you for making sure the truth came out." Maya hugged her, both of them crying, and felt 7 years of guilt finally start to ease. That evening, she returned to her apartment and found a letter that had been slipped under her door. Heavy paper, formal seal. She opened it carefully. It was from the Department of Defense. An official apology for the way she'd been treated after Operation Iron Shepherd. A restoration of her honorable discharge status with full commendations. A combat medical badge with Valor device. And a presidential citation for extraordinary heroism. The letter was signed by the Secretary of Defense himself. Maya read it 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. The awards didn't change anything. They didn't bring back the dead, didn't erase the trauma, didn't undo 7 years of silence. But they were acknowledgement. Official, public, permanent. She pulled out her phone and called Patricia Hale. "I'm not coming back to Carrington Memorial," Maya said when Patricia answered. Silence on the other end. Then, "I understand. Can I ask why?" "Because I've spent 10 years being invisible, working in places where nobody noticed me, where I could fade into the background and just do the job without questions." "You were good at your job." "I know, but I don't want to be invisible anymore. I don't want to hide what I'm capable of. And I can't do that in a place where people will always see me as the nurse who brought federal agents and bombs into their hospital. Patricia was quiet for a moment. So what will you do? I'm going to start a training program for combat medics transitioning to civilian medicine. Teach them how to adapt their skills, how to deal with the trauma, how to speak up when they see something wrong. That sounds perfect for you. James Hartley's foundation is funding it. First class starts in January. I'm calling it the Iron Shepherd Initiative. Using the name of the operation. Using it, owning it, making sure nobody forgets what happened or why it matters. They talked for a few more minutes, said goodbye. Maya hung up feeling lighter than she had in months. She spent the next 3 months building the program, recruiting instructors, designing curriculum, reaching out to veterans who'd expressed interest. The work was exhausting and consuming and exactly what she needed. The first class of the Iron Shepherd Initiative launched in January with 23 students, former combat medics from Iraq, Afghanistan, and other deployments. Men and women who'd seen the worst of humanity and still wanted to help people heal. Maya stood in front of them on the first day of training and looked at their faces, scarred, exhausted, hopeful, determined. Some of you probably heard my story, she began. How I disobeyed orders to save soldiers. How I got forced out of the military. How I spent 7 years hiding before finally speaking up. You might think that makes me some kind of hero. She paused. It doesn't. It makes me someone who stayed quiet when I should have spoken sooner. Who let fear control me for too long. Who needed other people to stand beside me before I found the courage to act. The students watched her intently. But here's what I learned. Speaking up is terrifying. Going against authority is dangerous. Standing alone feels impossible. But staying silent is worse. Because silence doesn't protect anyone. It only protects the people who benefit from your silence. She gestured to the room around them. This program exists because people spoke up, because witnesses testified, because investigators refused to let the truth stay buried. You're here because someone along the way decided your service mattered, your experience mattered, your voice mattered. Maya picked up a stack of folders and started distributing them. So my first rule for this program: never stay quiet about something wrong just because it's easier. Not with patients, not with colleagues, not with anyone. You have skills most people don't. You've seen things most people can't imagine. That doesn't make you broken. It makes you valuable. And the world needs people who can stay calm when everything's falling apart. One student raised her hand. Young, probably mid-20s, burn scars visible on her neck. What if people don't listen? What if you speak up and nobody cares? Then you speak louder. You find evidence. You get allies. You make them listen. Maya met the student's eyes. And if they still don't, you go around them, over them, through them, because the right thing doesn't stop being right just because it's hard. The student nodded slowly. Training continued for 6 weeks. Maya taught them civilian medical protocols, trauma management, de-escalation techniques. But more importantly, she taught them how to trust themselves again, how to recognize when authority was wrong, how to push back without destroying their careers. On graduation day, all 23 students received certifications and job placements at hospitals across the country. Several were hired immediately. Others went into emergency services. A few decided to pursue further medical education. Maya shook each of their hands personally. "You're not invisible anymore," she told them. "Don't let anyone make you invisible again." That night, she met Rachel, David, and James at a restaurant in downtown Dalton Ridge. The first time they'd all been together socially since the trials ended. They ordered too much food and told stories and laughed until Maya's face hurt. "To Desert Angel," James said, raising his glass. "To Maya," Rachel corrected, the woman who decided she was done hiding. They drank to that. Later, walking back to her car through cold winter streets, Maya passed the alley where she'd first treated Walsh's gunshot wound after fleeing the safe house attack. She stopped for a moment, remembering the chaos and fear and desperate improvisation. It felt like a lifetime ago. Her phone buzzed. A message from one of her students. "Just started my first shift at County General. Spoke up during a code when I saw something the attending missed. Patient stabilized. Thank you for teaching me it was okay to use my voice." Maya smiled and typed back, "Proud of you. Keep speaking up." She continued walking, her breath making clouds in the frozen air. Somewhere across the city, Taggart sat in a prison cell. Castellano 2. Harris was dead. The cover-up was destroyed. Operation Iron Shepherd was no longer classified. The war was over. But Maya wasn't the same person who'd started it. She wasn't the quiet nurse trying to disappear. Wasn't the scared veteran running from her past. Wasn't even Desert Angel anymore. Not really. She was Maya Reeves, combat medic, teacher, survivor, someone who'd learned that silence was just another form of surrender, and she was done surrendering. 6 months later, Maya stood on a stage at a veterans conference, addressing 500 former military personnel about the importance of speaking up about institutional failures. Her program had expanded to 3 locations. She'd been interviewed by national media. Veterans groups were using her story in training materials. She'd become visible whether she wanted to or not. But this time, she wasn't hiding from the attention. She was using it. "People ask me if I regret speaking up," she told the conference audience. "If I wish I'd stayed quiet and kept my simple life." And the answer is no. Because that life wasn't simple. It was small. It was safe. But it wasn't real. I was hiding from who I was because I was scared of what people would do if they knew. She looked out at the faces watching her, veterans of every age and background, people who understood what it meant to carry invisible scars. But here's the truth nobody tells you. The people who want you silent are always afraid of what you might say. That's why they threaten, why they intimidate, why they try to destroy you before you can speak, because your truth is dangerous to them. Maya's voice grew stronger. So speak anyway. Speak knowing it might cost you. Speak knowing you might stand alone at first. Speak because silence is a choice, and sometimes that choice means abandoning people who need you. I abandoned 13 soldiers for 7 years by staying quiet. I won't abandon anyone else. The audience erupted in applause. Later, as Maya left the conference hall, a young veteran approached her. Couldn't have been more than 25. Purple heart pin on his jacket, prosthetic leg visible below his jeans. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say thank you. I was getting ready to take my own life last year. Thought nobody cared about what happened to us over there. Then I saw you testifying at the congressional hearing, saw you refuse to back down. And I thought, if she can fight, maybe I can too." Maya's throat tightened. "Are you okay now?" "Getting there. Started therapy, joined a support group, applied to your program for next semester." "Good. We need people like you." "People like me?" "People who understand that surviving is just the first step. Living is what comes after." The veteran nodded, eyes shining. "Yes, ma'am." He walked away. Maya stood alone in the empty corridor, feeling the weight of responsibility and purpose settle across her shoulders. Not crushing anymore, just present, real. She'd been invisible for so long because it felt safer, because standing up meant becoming a target, because speaking truth to power meant risking everything. But she'd learned something in those congressional chambers, in those courtroom testimonies, in those dark moments when bombs exploded and bullets flew. Some things were worth the risk. Justice was worth it. Truth was worth it. And the people depending on you to speak up when nobody else would, they were worth it most of all. Maya walked out of the conference center into bright afternoon sunlight. Somewhere in Dalton Ridge, her program was training its 4th class of combat medics. Somewhere in Washington, laws were being rewritten to prevent another Operation Iron Shepherd. Somewhere in military bases across the world, soldiers were learning that speaking up wasn't insubordination. It was courage. And Maya Reeves, the nurse nobody noticed, the woman who'd spent years being invisible, was finally exactly where she belonged. Seen, heard, unsilent. The war had taught her how to survive under fire. The cover-up had taught her how to endure in silence. But the fight to expose the truth had taught her something far more valuable. That the strongest thing you can do is refuse to disappear just because someone wants you gone. She pulled out her phone and checked her messages one last time. Another student asking for advice. A reporter requesting an interview. An invitation to speak at West Point about ethical leadership. Maya smiled. Then she turned off her phone, got in her car, and drove toward whatever came next, knowing that she'd never hide again, never stay silent again, never let anyone convince her that being invisible was the same as being safe. Because some battles aren't won by disappearing. They're won by standing in the light and refusing to blink. And Maya Reeves had spent enough time in the shadows.